Dasa Mula Tattva Chapter 1. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 500 years after his appearance, there are many learned people engaged in specialized research and cultivation of knowledge in various parts of the world. The result of their hard efforts, like rays of light, drive out the darkness from the hearts of those eager for knowledge. The youth of this country, obtaining all this material knowledge at universities, gain an acquaintance with their way of thinking. In their extensive studies, many have also studied the works of different preachers of religion in India and elsewhere. They have come to the conclusion that there is no teacher equal to Sri Chaitanya and that there is no religion equal to pure Vaishnava Dharma. Inspired by this conclusion, thousands of men now desire to know the teachings of Sri Chaitanya and the meaning of Vaishnava Dharma. Wise men have conviction that the religion of humanity cannot be many. The eternal religion of mankind cannot be divided into extremely opposing factions. At root, eternal religion must be only one. Why have many religions then arisen? The correct answer is that the religion or dharma of man is one when the soul is in a pure condition. When the soul becomes conditioned, the dharma takes two forms, conditional and unconditional. Unconditional dharma does not differ no matter what country it is found in. When the soul takes on material designation and consequently different place, time and body, due to variety in matter, conditional dharma makes its appearance in different countries and at different times. Conditional dharma takes on different forms and names in different countries. The dharma of the soul becomes unconditioned to the extent that the soul becomes freed from material conceptions. When the jivas reach the unconditioned state, they have only one dharma. Sri Chaitanya taught this eternal dharma to the jivas of this world. It is called pure Vaishnava Dharma. Lord Chaitanya dispatched the two generals Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami to Vrindavana to preach the bhakti cult. As Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were sent toward Mathura, so Nityananda Prabhu was sent to Bengal to preach extensively the revelations of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally went to South India, and he broadcast the holy name of Lord Krishna in very village and town. CC Adi 7, 164-66. Listen to the instruction that the Lord himself gave the world, through his orders to his commissioned generals. Therefore I order every man within this universe to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. One who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. CC Adi 9. 36, 41. Is it any surprise then, that a person would give up the teachings of spokesmen of various religions and simply desire to learn the pure Vaishnava Dharma of Sri Chaitanya? It is necessary that we give the teachings of Sri Chaitanya to the world at the present time. However, taking this opportunity, some unintelligent persons have attempted to mislead the educated people by preaching their own doctrines. Some people, giving up the correct path, have taken up a speculative path, cheating themselves and the world. At the moment, we must therefore, to the best of our ability, make a sincere attempt to help the innocent, educated youth. In such an auspicious work there are none of the obstacles that arise in selfish acts. Many people, with motives of self-interest, can take advantage and preach impure doctrines. However, dear readers, we have no type of self-interest at heart. We do not desire wealth, fame, surrender, or respect as an acharya. We have only the desire to make the people understand and appreciate the teachings of Sri Chaitanya, to the extent of our own appreciation by the mercy of devotees. Some time ago I happened to see one new publication called Sri Chaitanya Bodhini. The authors had vowed to give the pure teachings of Sri Chaitanya to the world. The vow is not bad, but the system they propose to gather Sri Chaitanya's teachings is very dangerous. The authors thought that they could extract the Lord's teachings from the Sanskrit works of the Goswamis. They forgot that the essence of the Goswamis' works is contained in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is sufficient to take this work in order to present the teachings of Sri Chaitanya to the world. There is no one as learned as Kaviraj Goswami today. Anyone who thinks that he can extract the essence from the Sanskrit works of the Goswamis better than Kaviraj Goswami is certainly worthless and foolish. Have firm conviction that by presenting to the world clearly the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, nothing else need be known. However, many topics in Kaviraj's work are described in a cryptic way. In those places it is best to consult the Sandarbhas, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and other works of the Goswamis in order to clarify matters. The aim of the Chaitanya Bodhini however was to bypass the superior authority. In the present work we will reveal the teachings of Sri Chaitanya clearly, based on the statements of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I have one request to the readers. The teachings of Mahaprabhu are a very confidential science. Without applying proper concentration one cannot understand them. It is a common practice nowadays to go to sleep after eating while reading a novel. One cannot read this book in that manner. These teachings are the esoteric truths of the Vedas and Vedanta Sutras. If one slowly reads these teachings with faith and concentration while discussing the topics with devotees, the truths will be properly understood. Therefore give up the bad habit and attentively study the 10 topics presented in this book. All of Sri Chaitanya's teachings, whatever they may be, are discussed in terms of 3 divisions: Sambandha, Abhyaya and Prayojana. In teaching Sanatana Goswami, Sri Chaitanya said, in Vedic literatures, Krishna is the central point of attraction, and his services are activity. To attain the platform of love of Krishna is life's ultimate goal. Therefore Krishna, Krishna's service and love of Krishna are the 3 great riches of life. When one accepts Vedic literature by interpretation or even by dictionary meaning, directly or indirectly, the ultimate declaration of Vedic knowledge points to Lord Krishna. CC Madhya 20. 143, 146. The meaning is this: Vedas are the scriptural authority. What the Veda states is true. Any religious person must act according to the instructions of the Vedas. The ultimate aim of the Vedic literature is to reveal Krishna as the only Lord, either by secondary, or indirect interpretation of the statements, or by primary or direct meaning of the statements. In other words, if one examines the Sambandha or principle of relationships described in the Vedas, one will find no one except Krishna. On considering the Abhyaya or process recommended in the Vedas, only devotion to Krishna will be found. In considering the Prayana or goal of the scriptures, only Krishna Prema will be found. In order to discuss in detail the Sambandha, Abhyaya and Prayana, the 10 conclusions taught by Sri Chaitanya will first be presented in the form of one verse, and later, each topic will be discussed separately in detail. The Supreme Lord Gaurachandra has taught 10 principles to the Jivas. 1. The statements of 4 Amdaya are the chief proof. By these statements the following 9 topics are taught. 2. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. 3. Krishna is endowed with all energies. 4. Krishna is the ocean of rasa. 5. The Jivas are all separated parts of the Lord. 6. In bound state the Jivas are under the influence of matter, due to their tatastha nature. 7. In a liberated state the Jivas are free from the influence of matter, due to their tatastha nature. 8. The Jivas and the material world are both different from and identical to the Lord. 9. Pure devotion is the practice of the Jivas. 10. Pure love of Krishna is the goal. The first topic concerns the nature of proof, pramana. The next 7 topics concern the Sambandha which is ascertained in the Vedas. The 9th topic concerns the Abhyaya or means. The 10th topic concerns the goal or prayana. If the topics are divided into 2 groups, source of knowledge, pramana, and what is proven by the source of knowledge, pramaya, the first topic is pramana and the rest are pramaya. Among the Sambandha topics the first 3 define Krishna and the next 3 define the Jiva. The 7th Sambandha topic deals with the relation between the Jiva and Krishna, inconceivable difference and non-difference. Please concentrate on each of these topics as they are discussed. Chapter 2 Naivikya is the final proof. What is the meaning of form Naivikya, authoritative statement or knowledge? Concerning this, there is the following Karika, verse. Amnaya refers to the scriptures called Brahma Vidya or knowledge of Brahma originating from Brahma, the creator of the universe and passed down by disciplic succession. That the knowledge was passed down from Brahma is stated in Mundaka Upanishad. Brahma, the creator of the universe and protector of the worlds, the first among the Devatas, taught Brahma Vidya, the basis of all knowledge, to his eldest son Atharva. He taught that knowledge by which the indestructible Supreme Person can be known in his true form. Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.1, January 2, 2013. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, from the Supreme Person's breath came the 4 Vedas, the histories, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the verses and sutras and all the Anuvyakayas, commentaries. The word histories refers to Ramayana and Mahabharata and other similar works. The word Puranas refers to the 18 major Puranas of which Srimad Bhagavatam is supreme, and 18 secondary Puranas, Upapuranas. Upanishads refers to the 11 Upanishads such as Isa, Kena, Kada, and Prasna. Verses refers to the collection of verses in meters such as Anustup composed by Rusas. Sutra refers to the concise statements which explain the meaning of the Vedas, written by major teachers. Anuvyakid refers to commentaries on the stitras written by great teachers. All of these are called Amnaya. The primary meaning of Amnaya is Veda. 1 Chaitanya Charitamrita also accepts the authority of the Vedas. The self-evident Vedic literatures are the highest evidence of all, but if these literatures are interpreted, their self-evident nature is lost. CC Adi 7, 139. Although there is other evidence, the evidence given in the Vedic version must be taken as foremost. Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. The Vedic statements are self-evident. Whatever is stated there must be accepted. If we interpret according to our own imagination, the authority of the Vedas is immediately lost. C.C. Madhya 6, 135, 137. The works of the Goswamis such as the Sandarbhas and Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishna Das Kaviraja are included among the Anuvyakits. Therefore Vedas, Puranas, histories, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, the commentaries by the Vaisnava Acharyas are all considered authoritative knowledge. These sources of authoritative knowledge are glorified in the Bhagavatam. Sri Krishna speaks to Uddhava, first recited the Vedic message to Lord Brahma, telling him about the ultimate path of pure devotion. That message is eternal. At the time of devastation, it disappears, and at the time of creation I explain it clearly to Lord Brahma. Brahma spoke this knowledge to his son Manu and others. Thereafter, the Devatas, Risas, and mankind all received this knowledge. The living entities and their lords are all different, receiving natures according to the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance. According to these different natures, various philosophies have been produced by various interpretation of the meaning. O Uddhava, those who receive the actual statements of the Vedas through Guru Parampara Anuvyakya, explanations, from Brahma have the real truth. All others' philosophies have become the servants of various offensive teachings. $B.11.14.3,7,82 Here it is clearly understood that the Brahma Sampradaya has existed from the time of creation. In this Brahma Sampradaya, the pure message of the Vedas has come down through the Guru Parampara and has preserved the real teachings of Bhagavad Dharma. Thus these teachings are called formnaya, 4 plus mna, to remember plus ya, that which is learned by passing down. Those who do not accept the Brahma Sampradaya, which is shown to be authoritative by such statements as Brahma, the Lord of the universe, is the first student of Narayana, Lord of Vaikunth III, are called preachers of irrelevant philosophy, pasandamata, by Krishna. Though a person accepts the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, if he cannot accept this parampara line, is he not most deceptive? The fortunate people consider this knowledge handed down in parampara as the best of proofs. This is Lord Chaitanya's first teaching. For in the Tattva Sundarbha, 9.10, Jiva Goswami says, I have just mentioned Sambandha, Abhyaya and Prayana. In order to explain the meaning of these terms, I first will define the nature of authoritative proof. Mankind is by nature afflicted with the 4 defects, Brahma etc., and therefore cannot understand inconceivable vertical bar, non-material matters. Direct sense perception will always be faulty, and therefore sense perception, inference and other normal means of knowledge cannot be considered as authoritative means of knowledge. The only means of knowledge, pramana, for persons desiring knowledge of the ultimate supreme object, the ultimate shelter, the inconceivable, endowed with the most remarkable nature, is the Veda. The Veda is perfect knowledge concerning both material and spiritual topics, handed down through a parampara of realized persons. Having established the authority of the Vedic knowledge, Jiva Goswami then shows how the Puranas contain the same message as the Vedas, and establishes the Srimad Bhagavatam as the best of all Pramanas. The same qualities which make Srimad Bhagavatam the best of all knowledge are present in the words of Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, Sukadeva, and in the writings of Madhvacarya and his followers Vijayadvaja, Brahmatirtha, and Vyasatirtha. By all these statements, it is evident that the Brahma Sampradaya is the Sampradaya of Lord Chaitanya and his followers. Ascertaining this, Kavi Karnapira has written the sequence of the Parampara in his work Auraganodasatipika. The Vedanta Stitra commentator Baladeva Vidyabhasana also confirms this Parampara line. Anyone who does not accept this Parampara is without doubt the greatest enemy of the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Concerning authoritative knowledge of the Vedas, the following should be especially noted. The Vedic statements are perfect and self-evident. There is no need for interpreting an indirect meaning. The meaning is understood by hearing the words with their direct meaning. The son of Sasi is directly the son of Nanda. On hearing these words a person can understand that Lord Chaitanya is none other than Krishna. The phrase cowherd on the Ganga however makes no sense by taking the direct meaning of the words. By indirect interpretation one can understand that the phrase means a cowherd village on the bank of the Ganga. In Vedic statements one should not resort to interpretation unless necessary. In the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, I surrender to the energy through Syama. I surrender to Syama through his energy. When a sensible meaning can be derived from taking the direct meaning of the words, why should we infer that the word Syama means the impersonal Brahman in the heart, as Sankaracharya does? Liberated persons worship the forms of Radha and Krishna. This is the real meaning of the statement. Because of this, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is stated that by resorting to indirect meanings the value of the Vedas as authority is lost. There are many varieties of interpretations. Jagadisa mentions in Sabdasakti Prakasika that there are countless types of interpretation, such as Jahatsvartha, Ajahatsvartha, Nirya and Adhunika. However, none of these interpretive means can be used to define the nature of something spiritual. Rather, in doing so, they give rise to misinterpretation. Sankaracharya argues that direct meaning of words cannot be used in relation to indescribable phenomena, therefore, the indirect interpretation must be used for find the meaning of Vedic statements. Madhvacarya has objected to this as follows: in examining the power of words, it is seen that where direct meaning is not accepted, interpretation also has no place. Where there exists no village, can one argue about its extent or size? Where there is no father, can one speak of his son? Tattva Muktavali 22. If the direct meaning is rejected in relation to spiritual matters, then what use is interpretation of the same words, which must depend ultimately upon the direct meaning? Therefore the intelligent man will reject interpretation and accept the direct connotative power of the words of the scriptures in trying to understand the absolute truth. The following Karika summarizes the point. Lord Chaitanya, who bestowed the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahma, has appeared in Kali Yuga in Navadvipa. He has revealed the pure essence of the Vedas, freeing the pure Vedic philosophy from the contamination of Kali Yuga. The human being in concluding anything must certainly indulge in the four faults of error: omission, limitation and cheating. In relation to spiritual matters, even the greatest learned man cannot avoid these four defects. Therefore, in spiritual matters, the only authority is the word of Veda, which has no human author. All other proofs, such as sense perception, inference, simile and tradition, when they are in agreement with the Vedic word, can be useful and relevant. 1. After showing that the spiritual knowledge comes from Brahma in succession, Bhaktivinoda shows that not only the Vedas, but Puranas and Chapter 3 Krishna is the absolute truth. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is the following authoritative statement, Amnivakya, concerning Krishna: the Vedas sometimes speak directly of Krishna, using the primary import of words, and sometimes speak indirectly of Krishna, using the secondary import of words. Sometimes they speak of Krishna with affirmative, logical statements and sometimes by negative or contrary expression. CC Madhya 10146. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the original primeval Lord, the source of all other expansions. All the revealed scriptures accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Lord. CC Adi 106. Lord Krishna himself is the one undivided absolute truth, the ultimate reality. He manifests himself in three features as Braham, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. CC Adi. 2. 65. The personality of Godhead is he who is described as the absolute whole in the Vedas, Bhagavatam, Upanishads and other transcendental literatures. No one is equal to him. Through their service, devotees see that personality of Godhead, just as the denizens of heaven see the personality of the sun. Those who walk the paths of knowledge and yoga worship only him, for it is him they perceive as the impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. CC Adi 2.24-26. The Svetasvatara Upanishad says, Bhagavan is worshipable by all. He is the basis of all entities who take birth. SU 5.4. In the Bhagavatam, Bhagavan is identified as Krishna. All the above-mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. SB 1. 3.28. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. B.G.7.7. By all the Vedas am to be known. B.G.15.15. In the Gopalatapanni Upanishad it is said, therefore Krishna is the Supreme Lord. One should meditate on him, chant his name, worship him and make offerings to him. All-pervading and controlling all, he is to be worshipped. Though he is one, he appears in many forms such as Kurma, Matsya, Vasudeva, and Sankarsana. Those wise persons who worship this form situated on his pita attain eternal happiness. Others, worshipping Brahma or Paramatma, cannot attain happiness. GT Parvatapani 21. There is a Karika in this regard: Krishna is the only Lord. Paramatma is his part and Brahma is his light. Narayana in Vaikuntha is a lordly manifestation of Krishna. There is no doubt about this, since the Vedas and other scriptures clearly show this. Taittiriya Upanishad says, Brahma is eternal, conscious, and infinite. He is situated in the heart as Paramatma and in Vaikuntha as Narayana. Whoever knows the Vipassat Brahma attains auspicious qualities similar to the Lord's. Taittiriya Upanishad 2.1. Here, the expression Vipassat Brahma means Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam also uses the word Braham to indicate Krishna, as in the following words. Vishnu Purana also uses the word Braham to mean Krishna, where the supreme Braham called Krishna appeared in human-like form. Gita says Brahmano hi pratishthayam, 1 am the basis of Braham. By these authoritative statements and many thousands more, Parabrahma or Vipassat Braham is equated with Krishna. The meaning of Vipassat is wise, indicating Braham with quality. It ranks important among the 64 qualities of Krishna. The qualities of Krishna are as follows: 1. Soft limb. 2. Endowed with auspicious bodily characteristics. 3. Beautiful. 4. Very effulgent. 5. Strong. 6. In the prime of youth. 7. Able to speak all sorts of languages. 8. Truthful. 9. Speaks in a pleasing manner. 10. Eloquent. 11. Learned. 12. Intelligent. 13. Genius. 14. Clever and rasa. 15. Cunning. 16. Skillful. 17. Grateful. 18. Determined in vows. 19. Acts according to time, place and person. 20. Sees through the eyes of scripture. 21. Clean. 22. Sense-controlled. 23. Steady. 24. Mild. 25. Forgiving. 26. Grave. 27. Patient. 28. Equal to all. 29. Generous. 30. Righteous. 31. Brave. 32. Merciful. 33. Respectful. 34. Straightforward. 35. Courteous. 36. Bashful. 37. Protector of those surrendered to him. 38. Happy. 39. Friend of his devotee. 40. Controlled by prema. 41. Makes everyone happy. 42. Dignified. 43. Famous. 44. Attractive to all. 45. Refuge of the devotee. 46. Attractive to women. 47. Worshipable by all. 48. Prosperous. 49. The best. 50. Endowed with opulences. 51. Always situated in his own form. 52. Omniscient. 53. Ever youthful. 54. Form of concentrated eternity, knowledge and bliss. 55. Endowed with all mystic powers. 56. Endowed with inconceivable energies. 57. Shelter of unlimited universes. 58. The origin of all avatars. 59. Giver of liberation to even his enemies. 60. Attractive to those enjoying the self. 61. Ocean of pastimes amazing to all. 62. Surrounded by gopas resplendent with unequaled love and sringara rasa. 63. Plays the flute which attracts the whole universe. 64. Unequaled beauty which astounds all creatures. Among the 64 qualities, the first 50 are present in the jivas to a small degree. All of them are present in Krishna to the fullest extent. The first 50 qualities and the next 5 qualities are partially present in Lord Shiva and others. The next 5 qualities along with the previous 55 qualities are present in Narayana, Lord of Vaikuntha. Narayana has these 60 qualities in full. However, these 60 qualities appear in Krishna in a more wonderful manner. In addition, Krishna possesses 4 exceptional qualities: the sweetness of his pastimes, the sweetness of his love, the sweetness of his form and the sweetness of his flute. No one except Krishna has these 4 qualities. Therefore the Parabraham or Vipassat Braham, the highest manifestation of truth, should be understood to be Sri Krishna. When Krishna's innumerable qualities are diffused like light rays, that is termed Braham. Therefore the Vedas, in describing the Supreme as Satyam Jnanam Anantam, are indicating the effulgent Braham. The form of the absolute truth in the heart or in the universe is Paramatma. The Lord creates all the universes and then enters them by his expansions. The form of the Lord who enters the universes and the hearts of the jivas is an expansion of Krishna, called Paramatma. This form is also known by many other names, such as Lord, Controller, Creator, Lord of the Universe, Maintainer, and Protector. He also protects the souls in the material world by taking the avatara forms such as Rama and Nrsimha. In the spiritual sky, Paramavyoma, one of Krishna's expansions known as Narayana, is present eternally. After understanding Braham, Paramatma and the Lord of Vaikuntha, a truly learned person surrenders to the supreme shelter, fully expert in the affairs of Rasa Vipassat Braham, Krishna, and enjoys eternally with the Lord, fulfilling his desires in Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhura Rasa. The Paramatma expansion of Krishna is described in the Bhagavad Gita. What need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. B.G.10.42 The Brahmajyoti as the bodily effulgence of Krishna is described in the Brahma Samhita. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Braham, which is absolute, complete and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets, with their different opulences, in millions and millions of universes. BS.5.40 There is a karika, to define the form of the Lord. Unlike the Yuva, in Krishna there is no difference between himself and his body, between himself and his qualities. In his spiritual form, his body is his self and his qualities are himself. Though Krishna is situated as one form of medium size, he is also situated everywhere. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, the personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. BRR 5 Narada Pajikaratra says, the Supreme Lord is endowed with all qualities and perfect, without birth, maintenance and destruction common to material bodies. His body is conscious, devoid of material qualities, composed of bliss. His form is devoid of distinctions between a body and possessor of the body, quality and possessor of the quality, devoid of internal difference. It has been shown above that Krishna, Bhagavan, full of eternity knowledge and bliss is the shelter of Paramatma and Brahman, and is the Supreme Lord. Now it is necessary to show how the Vedas indicate Krishna by secondary and primary reference, Gana and Mukhya, and by negative and positive statement, Vyatirika and Anvaya. Krishna is described by direct abhita use of words in the Chandogya Upanishad. In surrendering to Syama, Krishna, take shelter of the essence of the pleasure potency. In taking shelter of the pleasure potency, surrender to Krishna. Chandogya Upanishad 8. 13.1 Savala means the variegated Svaryapasakti of Krishna. The abhitavriti or primary meaning of the word Syama is Krishna. In the RG Veda Samhita and Aranyapanishad 5th mantra it is said, the wise continuously see the highest form of Vishnu. This supreme form, perceived with spiritual eyes, is Krishna. RG Veda 1. I saw a cowherd. He never falls from his position, sometimes he is near, and sometimes far, wandering on various paths. He is a friend, decorated with a variety of clothes. He comes again and again to the material world. RG Veda 1. 22.164 Sikta 31 In this Vedic statement Krishna's eternal pastimes are directly described. It is also said 22.23 I desire to go to the houses of Radha and Krishna, where the cows have big horns and fulfill the desires of the devotees. This supreme abode of Krishna reveals itself completely. RG Veda 1.54 Sukta 6 In this Vedic mantra, Krishna in Gokula is described very nicely. There are many more direct descriptions of Krishna in the Vedas. Again in the RG Veda it is said, there is no one greater than him. There is no one smaller or larger than him. By this person everything becomes complete. He is situated firmly like a tree, surrounded by effulgence. Svetasvatara Upanishad 3.9 Kata Upanishad says, just as the element fire enters the world and takes the form of many similar fires, the Supreme Lord, the soul of all souls, enters the material world, as many jivas. Kata Upanishad 2. 2.9 That which is like the original but dependent is called counter-image or pratibimba. Though the Yuva is an expansion of Paramatma and thus similar, it can never become the original, being situated at a distance from the original. As the sun has particles situated in its external rays, so Paramatma has the jivas as his expansions. Isavasaya Upanishad says, O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face, form, is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. Isopanishad 15:1 Cannot see the Lord without pure bhakti. Pure bhakti does not arise without the mercy of the Lord. In this verse the devotee pleads for the Lord's mercy. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, this soul is the honey for all living entities. He is the Lord of all living entities, the King of all living entities. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 2. 5.14-15 Here the scriptures are hinting at Krishna by describing his quality. Krishna is described as the sweetness of all living beings, the Lord and King. Atma here refers to Krishna. This is the usage in the Bhagavatam as well. Krishna menamav hitvam atmanam jagadmanam O King, understand that Krishna is the soul of all souls of the universe. S.B.10. 14.52 Chandogya Upanishad makes statements of agreement, Anvaya, with the above conclusions. There is a small, lotus-like dwelling place in Brahmapura. This statement directly explains that there is a spiritual realm shaped like a lotus in Brahmapura. This place is also described in the Brahma Samhita, the super-excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokula, has thousands of petals and a corolla like that of a lotus sprouted from a part of his infinitary aspect. BS2 That soul is without sin, without old age, without death, without lamentation, without hunger, without thirst, fully truthful and whose wish is always fulfilled. Chandogya Upanishad 8. 1.5. If he desires friendship, by his wish, friends appear and with them he can obtain satisfaction. Chandogya Upanishad 8. 2.9. I surrender to the energy of Syama through Syama and surrender to Syama through his energy. Chandogya Upanishad 8. 13.1 That supreme place, Gokula, is the shelter of immortality. The Jivas residing there are free of sin, without old age, without death, without lamentation, without hunger or thirst. Their desires are pure. All their desires are fulfilled. The pure soul is endowed with these 8 qualities. There they enjoy the rasas such as fraternity, from which they derive satisfaction and bliss. They eternally worship Syama, who is united with his pleasure potency. In the above verses the Vedas show by positive statements the eternal abode and pastimes of Krishna. The Vedas indicate Krishna by negative or contrary statements, Vyatirika, in many places. Kata Upanishad says, neither sun, moon, stars, lightning, what to speak of fire, can reveal the Supreme. Rather all the luminary objects, in accordance with the Lord, receive their own existence. Everything rests on the existence of the Lord. Kata Upanishad 2. 2.15 Know that great person is transcendental to the material world, self-illuminating like the sun. The Yuva, knowing him, surpasses death. There is no other path for crossing death. His hands and feet are spread everywhere. His eyes, head, mouth and ears are everywhere. He exists spreading himself in all things. Svetasvatara Upanishad 3. 8.16 His form is beyond material sense perception. No one can see him with material eyes. Those who, by meditation, know him who is situated in the heart, attain liberation. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4.20 In this manner, the Vedas give abundant descriptions of Krishna by figurative, gana, and contrary, Vyatirika, statements. The literal Gamukya, and supporting, Anvaya statements can be recognized as such only by the power of Krishna's spiritual energy, or Siddhi Sakti. In the prayers of the personified Vedas in the Bhagavatam, it is said, O Krishna, you destroy the energy of Maya called Desha, which gives rise to the 3 modes of nature, full of fault. Through your own energy you are the Lord of all powers. You awaken all the energy of the moving and non-moving entities. The Vedas describe you in 2 ways. When you operate with Maya Sakti you are described in one way, and when you use your internal energy or Atma Sakti in performing Vraya Lila, you are described in another way. SB 10. 87.14 This Karika summarizes the point. One cannot see anywhere in the scriptures acts as glorious as Krishna's pastimes, such as his conquest of Brahma, Shiva, and Indra, the Rasa dance, or the bringing together of his guru with his lost sons. Therefore the devotees say that Krishna's supremacy is self-evident. Or as Svetasvatara Upanishad says, you are the lord of all other controllers such as Brahma and Shiva. You are the lord of all the devatas such as Indra. You are the lord of all the Prajapatis. You are superior to the Supreme. We know you as the worshipable Lord, Master of all the worlds, and absorbed. Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.7. Chapter 4 Krishna is endowed with all energies. The topic of energy and the possessor of energies has been under discussion for a long time. Some people say that whatever is seen in the universe is but a manifestation of energy. They doubt whether there is anything other than energy. Energy is the revealer of things. The things themselves cannot be realized but are perceived only through their energy. Among the examples they give, the following is 1. Earth has various qualities. What we call earth is but a collection of those qualities. One cannot say whether earth exists or not, after taking away the qualities. Qualities are energy. Therefore energy is the only principle of existence. Others counter this argument by saying that energy has no separate existence, it is an inseparable nature of the object. What the object reveals is called energy. The great devotees have concluded that energy, quality, is one entity and the possessor of energy, object, is another entity. Though they are different they are yet inseparable. Because man's mind is limited, he cannot understand the deep relation between the energy and energetic. The object and its energy, though distinct, are yet not different. Difference and non-difference coexist. This inconceivable different and non-different nature between an object and its energy is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Radha is the full power, and Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. The two are not different, as evidenced by the revealed scriptures. They are indeed the same, just as musk and its scent are inseparable, or as fire and its heat are non-different. Thus Radha and Lord Krishna are one, yet they have taken two forms to enjoy the mellows of pastimes. C.C. Adi. 4.96-98. This conclusion can be found in the Veda and Vedanta. In the scriptures the following statement is seen: the energy and the energetic are non-different. Actually there is no object except Krishna. For that reason Krishna is called Advaya, or without a second. Those who are dedicated to Brahman or Paramatma, however, cannot easily identify Krishna as the supreme object. Although the object is one only, that one object appears in three different ways according to qualification of the observer of the object. Three people may view a mountain from three different angles. On the north side is mist. The person viewing from the north side discerns the mountain as a huge peak surrounded by mist. Bright sunlight is falling on the southern side. The person who views from the south side sees the mountain as an effulgent rock wall. The person who views the mountain from the side without any external influences sees the complete mountain clearly. He sees the actual mountain. In perceiving the absolute truth as well, learned men see the truth differently according to their different points of view. Those who cultivate knowledge and try to see the absolute conclude that the absolute truth, which is the opposite of material existence, is devoid of form, change, energy and action. This they call Brahman. However, they have not discerned the real nature of the ultimate truth. Those who, using their intelligence, search for the final object, perceive the friend of the soul, Paramatma, endowed with a form and similar in nature to the individual soul. Those who see the absolute truth by means of bhakti yoga, whose vision is without obstacles, understand the Lord as he is, as Bhagavan, full of all energies, all sweetness and all opulences. One cannot understand the Supreme Soul by studying the Vedas or by hearing many scriptures or by one's mental energy. The Lord reveals himself to the person who accepts the Lord as his master. That person alone attains the Lord. Kata Upanishad 1. 2.23. In the Bhagavatam it is written, O Lord, only those who attain a particle of mercy for your lotus feet can understand your glory. Those who search for you by studying the scriptures using logic cannot understand you at all. SB 10. 14.29. Realizations of Brahman and Paramatma are covered by Maya. Brahman realization has a covering of Maya by negation, and Paramatma realization has a covering of material energy directly. When a person is able to see the Lord with uncovered, spiritual eyes, he sees the spiritual form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This form is the highest truth, and his energies are his manifestations. If a person realizes the Lord devoid of energies, he has realization of Brahman. Some, according to their inclination, think that this is the final realization. Actually, realization of Bhagavan without energies, without qualities, is Brahman. Brahman with qualities and energies is Bhagavan. Thus Bhagavan is the real truth, Brahman is only his impersonal effulgence, and Paramatma is the Lord's expansion who enters into the material universe. Though he appears to be Brahman through the impersonal quest, the Lord is eternally existing in an inconceivable form with qualities, separate from both matter and the living entities. Therefore Bhagavatam says, learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. SB 1. 2.11. Realization of the Lord without energies is Brahman. Realization of the Lord as a subtle being pervading the material universe is Paramatma. Realization of the Lord in full with all qualities is Bhagavan. Realization of Bhagavan pervaded by majesty is called Narayana, the Lord of Lakshmi. Realization of the Lord pervaded by sweetness is called Krishna, the Lord of Radha. Kaviraj Goswami says Radha is the complete energy, Krishna is the complete possessor of energy. This is the correct understanding. Putting aside the realization of Brahman and Paramatma as secondary, and covering the majesty of Narayana with sweetness, Krishna, endowed with all energies, remains the highest truth. Svetasvatara Upanishad says thus, Krishna has no work to perform with material senses, because he has no material body or senses. His body is a completely spiritual form, and thus is not limited in good qualities like a material body. Krishna, endowed with unlimited wonderful qualities, performs eternal pastimes in spiritual Vrindavana. But though he is so, he is still the supreme entity. No other form is equal to or superior to his form, because his form is the abode of all inconceivable energies. It is called inconceivable because by limited human intelligence the contradictions cannot be resolved. This inconceivable energy is called the superior energy, Parasakti. Though one, this intrinsic energy takes three forms, Jnana, Samvit, Bala, Sandhini, and Kriya, Ladini. Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.8. Thus in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, One who knows the real feature of Sri Krishna and his three different energies cannot remain ignorant about him. The Cit Sakti, which is also called Svartipa Sakti or Antaranga Sakti, displays many varied manifestations. It sustains the kingdom of God and its paraphernalia. The external energy, called Maya Sakti, is the cause of innumerable universes with varied material potencies. The marginal potency, which is between these two, consists of the numberless living beings. These are the three principal energies, which have unlimited categories and subdivisions. CC Adi. 2.96, 101-104. Lord Krishna naturally has three energetic transformations, and these are known as the spiritual potency, the living entity potency and the illusory potency. CC Madhya 20, 111. There is a karika to elaborate on this. In the scriptures, Krishna's three intrinsic energies are described as Bala, Sandhini, Jnana, Samvit, and Kriya, Hladini. The energies and the source of the energies are non-different. This is the conclusion of the scriptures. However, through the operation of the inconceivable energy of the Lord, variety becomes manifest. The function of the Sandhini, existence, Sakti is manifestation of name, form and qualities of things. This brings about the material existence through Sandhini's material function and the spiritual existence through its spiritual function. Jnana also has two varieties, spiritual and material Samvit. Similarly, there are spiritual and material Hladini energies which give rise to spiritual and material pleasure. The Hladini Sakti is the dear servant of Krishna. She becomes Radha, the daughter of Vrisabhanu, in manifesting Mahabhava, the highest ecstasy of spiritual love. Krishna has only one intrinsic energy called the superior energy, Parasakti. This energy creates variety in the spiritual world and increases the varieties of bliss. Though the influence of this energy is infinite, from the point of view of the Jiva, it appears to have three functions, as the Cit Sakti, the Jiva Sakti and the Maya Sakti. The influence of the three energies are described in many places in the Vedas. Svetasvatara describes the Cit Sakti manifestation thus: the verses of the Veda describe the indestructible spiritual sky, where all the devas reside. Of what use are the Vedas to a person who does not know this fact? Those who understand this have been successful. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4.8. There is a karika. The Parasakti described in the Vishnu Purana is called the Svarupa Sakti in philosophical discussions. This is likewise explained in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. The one possessor of energy appears as the controller of all causes, along with the Jiva and time. The persons absorbed in yoga meditation have seen this personal energy of the Lord, Atma Sakti, which is surrounded by its expansion. Svetasvatara Upanishad 1.3. There is a karika concerning the Maya Sakti. In the Vishnu Purana, what is called the energy of avidya karma is called Maya Sakti in the Vedic texts. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4.8 says, whatever is glorified in the Vedas, such as yajnas, chanting Vedas, Asvamedha Krachu, vows such as Kandrayana, is created by the Supreme Person, controller of Maya. The Jiva is bound by this same Maya. Concerning the Tattva Sakti, there is a karika. The energy called Kshatrajana mentioned in the Vishnu Purana is the Tattva Sakti or Jiva Sakti. Through this Sakti unlimited jivas appear. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4.5 says, the unborn person, Jiva, is serving the unborn material nature, which generates numerous material bodies for the living entities and is composed of goodness, passion and ignorance. The other unborn person, Paramatma, is detached from the enjoyment of material nature. The whole cosmic order is under me. By my will it is manifested again and again, and by my will it is annihilated at the end. B.G.9.8 This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. B.G.9.10 Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence and false ego, altogether these eight comprise my separated material energies. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which are all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. B.G.7.4-5 Through these three energies, the spiritual world, material world and the jivas make their appearance. In these three energies, the influence of Sandhini, Samvit and Hladini are present. In the realm of Cit Sakti, the Sandhini gives rise to the qualities, the objects, and all other things which assist in the Lord's pastimes. Krishna's form, name, qualities and pastimes are all due to the Sandhini potency. By the influence of the Samvit Sakti on the Cit Sakti all the spiritual moods arise. By the Hladini influence on the Cit Sakti, Prema expands. By the influence of the Sandhini on the Yuva Sakti, the Yuva spiritual existence, name and place appear. Through the influence of Samvit on the Yuva Sakti the knowledge of God arises. Through the Hladini influence the Yuva experiences spiritual bliss. The Yuva's experience of bliss of Samadhi by practicing Astanga Yoga and merging into Brahma are also the effects of the Samvit on the Yuva. By the influence of Sandhini on Maya Sakti, the material universe composed of 14 material planetary systems, the gross and subtle bodies of the jivas and material senses, and the goals of the jivas such as Vaga, are manifested. The material name, form qualities and actions of the conditioned Yuva all arise from this. By the influence of the Samvit on the Maya Sakti, the worries, hopes, speculations and thoughts of the conditioned Yuva arise. By the influence of Hladini on the Maya Sakti, gross material bliss and the subtle material happiness of Svarga arise. One should understand that the Sandhini, Samvit and Hladini manifest their pure, full form in the Cid Sakti. In the Yuva Sakti, these appear in very minute quantity. In the Maya Sakti these appear in a perverted or shadow form. For the Yuva, the forms manifested in Maya are detrimental. In the Yuva himself, these three influences are not detrimental but dilute. Without joining to the Hladini manifested in the Cid Sakti, the Yuva cannot experience full spiritual bliss. Such joining cannot be accomplished, except through the mercy of Krishna or his devotee. On this there is as Karika, Krishna has one energy called his inconceivable, contradiction-breaking energy. By this energy all contradictory qualities become non-contradictory and exist together eternally. Having form yet being formless, having full power, yet taking the limited form of a deity, unaffected by anything, but responsive to his devotees, unborn but taking birth as Avatara, all worshipable but taking the form of a cowherd, omniscient but appearing as a human being without quality but full of qualities. All such contradictory qualities appear in the form of Krishna and assist his service to Sri Radha, the embodiment of the Hladini Sakti. Logic and argument are fruitless here. As man's power of logic is limited, it is of no use in topics which are beyond his limit. The fortunate person gives up logic and faithfully accepts the words of scripture. From the seed of faith, the creeper of bhakti develops, and finally the devotee attains the lotus feet of Krishna. The statements of scripture about the contrary qualities within the Lord are many. The Lord has no material hands or feet, yet he accepts things and goes everywhere. He has no material eyes but sees past, present and future. He has no ears but hears. He knows all, but no one knows him. The learned call him the original supreme person. Svetasvatara Upanishad 3.19 He is moving and non-moving, far and near. He is within the universe and outside the universe. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Isopanishad 5:8 Talavakara Upanishad 3.6 speaks of his inconceivable power. When the Devas became proud after conquering over the demons in battle, the Lord, in order to curb their pride, placed a blade of grass in front of Agni. Agni approached the blade of grass, but in spite of using all his strength, he could not burn the grass. Coming before the Devas he said, I cannot comprehend this worshipable Lord. Chandogya Upanishad and Gopalotapani Upanishad speaks of his energies and form. Through his energy I surrender to Krishna. Through Krishna, surrender to his energy. Chandogya Upanishad 8:13.1 We worship the Lord, with dress of a cowherd, lotus-like eyes, complexion of a cloud, yellow cloth, two-armed, showing the Manamudra and decorated with a forest garland. Gopalotapani Upanishad, Parva 13.1 To understand about Saktis of the Lord, the Chaitanya Charitamrita should be studied. Krishna has unlimited potencies, which can be divided into three main parts. These are the spiritual potency, the material potency and the marginal potency, which is known as the living entities. In other words, these are all potencies of God internal, external and marginal. However, the internal potency is the Lord's personal energy and stands over the other two. Originally Lord Krishna is Saksidananda Vigraya, the transcendental form of eternity, bliss and knowledge. There is personal potency, the internal potency, has three different forms. Hladini is his aspect of bliss, Sandhini, of eternal existence, and Samvit, of cognizance, which is also accepted as knowledge. The potency called Hladini give Krishna transcendental pleasure. Through this pleasure potency, Krishna personally tastes all spiritual pleasure. Lord Krishna tastes all kinds of transcendental happiness, although he himself is happiness personified. The pleasure relished by his pure devotee is also manifest by his pleasure potency. The most essential part of this pleasure potency is love of Godhead. Consequently, the explanation of love of Godhead is also a transcendental mela full of pleasure. The essential part of love of Godhead is called Mahabhava, transcendental ecstasy, and that ecstasy is represented by Srimati Radharani. Madhya 3, 151-160. Through this inconceivable energy, Krishna appears in the material world along with his abode and associates. By his unlimited mercy, the spiritual abode, name, form, qualities and pastimes become visible to the conditioned souls. These things cannot be seen by the material eye, but by the inconceivable energy and Krishna's mercy, these become visible to the material eye. Sometimes he also appears in other forms such as Madisa, Kurma, Vara, Nrsimha, Vamana and Rama and performs his pastimes. But, it should be noted that Krishna is the source of the avatars. Yet Krishna and his expansions are all spiritual. They are not influenced by the material energy and do not take material bodies. Occasionally, the Lord may invest a qualified jiva with his energy, appearing as a Sakti Avesa Avatara. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita the avatars are described thus: in his original form, Krishna manifests himself in two features, Prabhava and Vibhava. He expands his one original form into many, as he did during the Rasa Lila dance. CC Madhya 20.167. Again, the Vilasa forms are divided into twofold categories, Prabhava and Vibhava. Again, the pastimes of these forms are of unlimited variety. CC Madhya 20.185. Now please hear about the different personal expansions. The first personal expansion is Sankarsana, and the others are incarnations like the fish incarnation. Sankarsana is an expansion of the Purusa or Vishnu. The incarnations such as Madisa, the fish incarnation, appear in different yugas for specific pastimes. There are 6 types of incarnations of Krishna. One is the Purusa incarnations, and another is the Lila avatars. There are incarnations of Gunas, incarnations of the Manas, incarnations in different millenniums and incarnations of empowered living entities. Madhya 20.243-246. Further descriptions and identity of the avatars may be obtained by consulting the 20th chapter of Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Chapter 5. Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure, the highest truth, the embodiment of supreme consciousness, is rasa. If a person cannot realize rasa, he cannot at all realize the supreme truth. Thus the Taittiriya Upanishad says, the supreme truth is rasa. The jiva becomes blissful on attaining this rasa. Who would work with body and prana, if this blissful, complete form did not exist? He gives bliss to all. Taittiriya 2.7. Progressing through faith, steadiness, taste, and attachment, when the relationship with Krishna matures into rati, it is called sthaibhava. When this sthaibhava becomes mixed with the ingredients vibhava, anubhava, sattvika bhava and vyabhikari bhava, it attains a remarkable state called bhakti rasa. The workings of material rasa and spiritual rasa are similar. When there is a sthaibhava directed towards Krishna, it becomes bhakti rasa. When the sthaibhava is directed towards enjoyment of sense objects, it becomes the ephemeral material rasa. When the sthaibhava is based on an inclination towards undifferentiated knowledge, it becomes impersonal Brahma rasa. When the sthaibhava is directed into yoga practice, it becomes Paramatma rasa. When a person, before attaining genuine rati, attempts to experience rasa using vibhava, anubhava, sattvika and vyabhikari bhavas, it becomes imperfect, fragmented rasa. Material rasa is insignificant. Let material literature describe this, and let the materialistic enjoyers relish it. The devotee has no interest in this, and discusses the spiritual rasa alone. The differences from Brahma rasa and Paramatma rasa previously mentioned will be discussed later. Now rasa will be clarified by discussing the ingredients. In the workings of rasa, rati, the sthaibhava, permanent inclination, is the container. It transforms to rasa by combination with the ingredients. There are 4 ingredients: vibhava, anubhava, sattvika bhava and vyabhikari bhava. Vibhava, cause of emotion, has 2 categories, alambana and udipana. Alambana, support in the form characters, has 2 divisions, asraya and visaya. The person possessing sthaibhava is the asraya or shelter. The person towards whom the sthaibhava is directed is the visaya or object. In spiritual rasa, the visaya is the worshipable Lord, and the worshipper devotee is the aforasraya. The innumerable qualities of the Lord are the udipana, stimulus. Dancing, choking up, singing, speaking loudly, stretching the body, hiccuping, yawning, sighing, disregard for others, drooling, laughing, wailing, grinding the teeth. Such visible manifestations of emotion are called anubhava, external symptoms. being stunned, sweating, standing of hairs, breaking of voice, shivering, change of color, tears and fainting. These 8 bodily changes due to disturbance of heart and pranas are called sattvika bhava, symptoms arising from internal disturbance. The 33 symptoms that appear suddenly in the ocean of sthaya bhava are called vyabhikari bhavas, transitory emotional symptoms. Appearing like waves in the ocean of sthaya bhava, these symptoms nourish the state of sthaya bhava. Rasa is of 2 types, primary and secondary. Primary rasas are 5, Santa, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhura. Secondary rasas are 7, comedy, wonder, bravery, lamentation, anger, fear and ghastliness. The 5 major rasas appear in different persons according to their riti. Santa riti makes Brahman and Paramatma the Vaisaya in a state of peace. In a more intense state, the Lord of Vaikuntha becomes the Vaisaya. Dasya riti accepts the Lord of Vaikuntha as Vaisaya with admiration of the Lord's power. When the attraction becomes more intense, Krishna alone becomes the object in Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhura riti. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, by regularly rendering devotional service, one gradually becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When that attachment is intensified, it becomes love of Godhead. The basic aspects of prema, when gradually increasing to different states, are affection, abhorrence, love attachment, further attachment, ecstasy and great ecstasy. The gradual development of love may be compared to different states of sugar. First there is the seed of the sugar cane, then sugar cane and then the juice extracted from the cane. When this juice is boiled, it forms a liquid molasses, then a solid molasses, then sugar, candy, rock candy and finally lozenges. All these stages combined are called sthaya bhava, or continuous love of Godhead in devotional service. In addition to these stages, there are vibhava and anubhava. When the higher standard of ecstatic love is mixed with the symptoms of sattvika and vyabhikari, the devotee relishes the transcendental bliss of loving Krishna in a variety of nectarian tastes. These tastes are like a combination of yogurt, sugar candy, ghee, black pepper and camphor and are as palatable as sweet nectar. According to the devotee, attachment falls within the 5 categories of Santa riti, Dasya riti, Sakhya riti, Vatsalya riti and Madhura riti. These 5 categories arise from the devotee's different attachments to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The transcendental mellows derived from devotional service are also of 5 varieties. See Madhya 19. 177-183. Those who desire to understand about rasa may study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, south, west and north parts, and its supplement Ujjvala Nilamani, under the guidance of a guru. These subjects are summarized in the teachings to Ripa and Sanatana in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In this chapter, Krishna will be shown as the reservoir of all rasa. Krishna has already been shown as the supreme entity in chapter 2. Krishna has also been shown to be the possessor of all powers. By examining the verses written by Ripa Goswami, one will understand all about Krishna. Ontologically, there is no difference between Narayana and Krishna. However, the form of Krishna holds a special attraction due to the rasa, especially invoked by conjugal sentiments. This is the nature of rasa. Brs Parva Vibhaga 32. Though Brahman and Paramatma are particular realizations of the absolute truth, they are devoid of unique, personal form, Svartipa. Realization of the Lord's personal form, Bhagavan, is the perfection in God realization. The Supreme Person appears in 2 forms, one is endowed with majesty and the other is endowed with sweetness. The Santa Rasa available through Brahma or Paramatma realization is extremely meager. With realization of the Lord's form in a majestic mood, Dasya Rasa, servitorship, arises in the worshipper. The extreme difference between the great powers of the Lord and the minute qualities of the Jiva make reverence inevitable. But because of this state of reverence, the Jiva is barred from higher rasa. Therefore by His mercy, the Lord reveals His real form as Krishna to the Jiva. Therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, the universe is filled with the conception of my majesty, but love weakened by that sense of majesty does not satisfy me. If one regards me as the Supreme Lord and himself as a subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. In whatever transcendental mellow my devotee worships me, reciprocate with him. That is my natural behavior. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me as his son, his friend or his beloved, regarding himself as great and considering me his equal or inferior, one becomes subordinate to him. Mother sometimes binds me as her son. She nourishes and protects me, thinking me utterly helpless. My friends climb on my shoulders in pure friendship, saying, "What kind of big man are you? You are equal." If my beloved consort reproaches me in a sulky mood, that steals my mind from the reverent hymns of the Vedas. Taking these pure devotees with me, I shall descend and sport in various wonderful ways, unknown even in Vaikuntha. CC. Adi 4. 17-27. If Krishna had not appeared in his original form, the Jiva would not have access to the higher rases, namely, Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhura. Bhava, emotion, is actually the primary pursuit in the world. The Jiva's knowledge of the Supreme is limited. By pursuing the path of knowledge, the Jiva does not receive any trace of love of God. By pursuing that path, a person does not realize the form of God, and instead concludes that God is formless and without qualities. The path of knowledge does not lead to realization of God's form. There is no process to realize the Lord except by the path of devotion, bhava. As a Jiva advances, proportionately his attraction, bhava, to the Lord increases and gives satisfaction. Advancement due to education or intelligence is not spiritual advancement. One can gain spiritual advancement only by increasing development of pure bhava. Thus an illiterate fool can attain a high degree of the Lord's mercy, and a learned scholar, being atheistic, on the level of an animal, and be completely devoid of the Lord's mercy. To attain the Lord's mercy, birth, education, wealth, strength, beauty or skills are ineffective. The great scholar and warrior, full of pride, gradually proceed to hell, while the fool and weakling worship the Lord in devotion and attain supreme peace. Thus the root of all spiritual attainment is bhava, emotion, ecstasy. This bhava takes the form of santa or dasya in many cases, suitable to the qualification of the person. In rare cases, the devotee achieves the highest goal of Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhura. The pure devotee who attains Madhura bhava is the chief of all the devotees tasting rasa. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, the qualities of Santa Rasa and the service of Dasya Rasa are both present on the platform of Sakya Rasa. On the platform of fraternity, the qualities of Dasya Rasa are mixed with the confidence of fraternity instead of awe and veneration. On the platform of paternal love, the devotee considers himself the Lord's maintainer. Thus the Lord is the object of maintenance, like a son, and therefore this mellow is full of the four qualities of Santa Rasa, Dasya Rasa, fraternity, and parental love. This is more transcendental nectar. On the platform of conjugal love, the devotee offers his body in the service of the Lord. Thus, on this platform all five transcendental qualities are present. All the material qualities evolve one after another in the material elements, beginning from ether. By gradual evolution, first one quality develops, then two qualities develop, the three and four, until all five qualities are in earth. CC Madhya 19.222,228, 232-233. When devotees with meager rasa hear about Madhura rasa, they cannot believe it, and moreover, they fear that it is offensive. The common spiritual practices take shelter of Dasya Rasa. Persons of this mentality, when they hear about worshipping the Lord in Madhura Rasa, reject it because of dread or fear of fall down. Some even think that this rasa is a perverse concoction. Those of lower qualification mistake the actions of those of superior qualification. Only when they attain that higher qualification by good fortune, they will realize, oh, was such a fool. I have criticized elevated souls. Therefore, we humbly request those following other paths to understand that this topic is very deep. Without special deliberation on this topic, one should not come to some erroneous conclusion. A person should give a seat to the Lord of the heart within the core of his heart, and try worshipping him in the Madhura mood. If he appreciates it, then he should take shelter of a guru competent in rasa and attempt to taste this rasa. If he does not appreciate it, then he may reject it as contrary to his nature, but in any case he should not denounce it. Here, there is no space for elaborate discussion of this topic. It is enough to say that those who are qualified for Madhura rasa are not attracted to any form other than Krishna's. Krishna is the sole object of the highest rasa. If a person impartially judges after giving up all contamination of ideas due to various philosophies, he must conclude that the form of Krishna is the best and purest of all. But because Krishna displays the quality of being on an equal level with his devotee, one should not consider that his form is less than other forms of God. Rather than being less, this form is in all ways greater than other forms. Krishna has whatever spiritual, complete qualities the other forms of God possess, but he has the additional, unique quality of revealing his complete spiritual pastimes to all the material senses through his Siddhi Sakti. When he appears in the material world, he is endowed with all powers, though carrying out seemingly material activities. When he acts like a boy with dear friends, when he acts like a baby under the protection of his parents, when he is the lover of those devotees in Madhura Rasa, he still exhibits his supreme control. Even while performing his pastimes like a human being among human beings, he astonished the most learned persons by acting as the master of all the elevated devatas. If Krishna had not mercifully revealed his intoxicating pastimes as a cowherd to the world, who would be able to realize that the Supreme Lord is the reservoir of Madhura Rasa? The pastimes of Krishna are not the creations of human imagination, nor are they based on the blind faith of bewildered, foolish people. However, only knowledgeable persons can understand this. Among all Krishna's pastimes, the pastimes in Vraya are supreme, because in those pastimes can be seen the highest attainment in rasa possible for the Jiva. Argumentative or logical intelligence cannot touch the glory of Krishna's pastimes. Only those devotees who can taste the rasa of the Vraya pastimes can understand their sweetness. Understanding the Vraya pastimes is the greatest good fortune. Logic, ethics, scholarship, yoga and knowledge of right and wrong become insignificant in front of the great shining lamp of Vraya pastimes, which illumine the hearts of the spiritually intelligent people. Concerning this there is a karika, where rati is nourished by material vibhava, anubhava, sattvika bhava and vyabhikari bhava. The rasa is material. Where the ingredients are spiritual, the rasa is spiritual. The object of spiritual rasa is Krishna. The degraded reflection of this rasa appears in the material world, a shadow of the spiritual realm. It is distinct from the spiritual rasa, pervading only the material world. When a fortunate person gives up the quest of happiness in the material world or an impersonal Brahman takes shelter of spiritual variety, he attains the ocean of Krishna's prima rasa. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Dam tv Upanishatam pursam prichami, I inquire after the person spoken of in the Upanishads, that person is none other than Krishna. When the Vedanta siddhas speak of Atma or self, they are describing Krishna with affection. There are two types of rasa, material and spiritual. When material anubhava, vibhava, sattvika and vyabhikari bhavas bring material rati to the state of rasa, it is only rasa between material male and female bodies. This rasa is insignificant, ephemeral and perverse. It is but a disgusting reflection of the spiritual rasa. The pure Jiva liberated from his relation to the material gross and subtle bodies is spiritual. His natural rati is also spiritual. This rati, when it becomes fixed as sthai bhava, mixes with the ingredients of spiritual anubhava, vibhava, sattvika, and vyabhikari bhava, and attains a relishable nature, it becomes spiritual rasa. And when the spiritual form of Krishna becomes the object of that rasa, Krishna Bhakti rasa arises. Krishna is supreme rasa. Krishna's Maya Sakti distributes material rasa, a shadow of the real rasa, to the jivas adverse to Krishna in the material world. The fortunate person gives up this lower rasa and surpasses even the insignificant rasa of bliss in Brahman within himself, and taking support of the variegated, pure rasa belonging to the spiritual world, he attains the ocean of rasa, in the form of Krishna. For those who dismiss the rasa of Krishna as insignificant, Ujjvala Mani says, when Srinkra rasa becomes material, it is extremely insignificant and condemned, but when it is spiritual, it is most significant and the most worshipable in the spiritual world. Ujjvala Mani, Nayaka Beta, 16. This rasa is not at all material. Its vibhavas, subject and object, Krishna and devotee, have nothing to do with the material gross or subtle bodies. The anubhavas, sattvika bhavas and vyabhikari bhavas, ecstatic symptoms, have a slight appearance in the material world. In order to taste the nectar of rasa, Krishna appeared in the material world, but he is not even an avatara, but avatari, the source of the avatars. Therefore the spiritual parakya relationships that occur in spiritual srimgar rasa with the avatari cannot be criticized. One will be able to judge these topics correctly according to the degree of detachment from material energy. When the hatred that the moralist displays towards material rasa is carried to the spiritual rasa, it brings about a prejudiced response. Unfortunate people detest the spiritual rasa embodied in the rasa lila between spiritual Krishna and the jivas with spiritual bodies. Such people are only cheating themselves. Krishna is the only male, as mentioned in the Upanishads. The Vedanta speaks of him affectionately by addressing him as Atma. Krishna, the Atma, self, is all in all. Seeing this form, meditating on this form, knowing this form, the Jiva develops attachment, pastimes, sexual relationships and bliss with the Lord. Chandogya Upanishad 7. 2.52 Everything in the universe is inferior Braham, a product of the energy of Braham. The real Atma of this Braham is Krishna, the Supreme Braham. Though he is one, through his inconceivable energy, he appears eternally in four forms for relishing rasa. Mundaka Upanishad 1.2 The four forms are mentioned by Sri Jiva Goswami in Bhagavat Sundarbha. The Supreme Truth is one. He is equipped with his natural inconceivable energies. Through this energy he exists in four forms, his own form, his expansion in the spiritual world, the Yuva and the material world. These may be compared to the sun, its internal effulgence, its external rays and its distant reflection. Bhagavat Sundarbha 16 Krishna's form, his spiritual expansions, and the Yuva absorbed in pastimes of spiritual rasa are all superior elements. There is a verse, according to the scriptures which elucidate the meaning of the Vedas, Bhagavatam and others, all the great devotees are searching for the pure rasa directed to Krishna. Sages such as Sanaka, Shiva Vyasa and Narada have described in their various works the spiritual rasa of Krishna's pastimes. These pastimes can be realized by Krishna's mercy, by the pure jivas devoid of material sentiments. To LT is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru of the universe, who has brought Krishna's sweet rasa to the material world. No one had done so before his appearance. To substantiate this, there is a verse by Srila Prabhupada Saraswati, O brother, who had heard of the supreme objective of human life called Prema, who knew the glories of the name of Hari, who was able to enter the sweetness of Vrindavan, who knew about the supreme energy, Radhika, the perfection of the wonderful Madhurya Rasa. Only the most merciful Chaitanya has uncovered all of these topics for the jivas. Chaitanya Candramrita 131. In this next section Bhaktivinoda shows how the Upanishads reveal intense attraction and rasa for the supreme male. 2. Bhaktivinoda concludes by saying that rasa can be known only by the mercy of Krishna, and by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chapter 6 Jivas are separated parts of Krishna. There is much disagreement concerning the nature of the individual soul or jiva. According to his nature, each human being will hold a different conclusion about the jiva. Those under the influence of ignorance believe that the jiva is an object arising from material elements. According to them, the jiva arises in material nature along with the material body. Those who are influenced by a mixture of ignorance and passion say that only human beings have souls or may be classified as jivas. Animals are less than jivas, and are meant for the enjoyment of humans. According to them, the associates of the Lord are a higher class than the jivas. They do not believe in previous or future bodies for the human being. They cannot say why one person for the first time attains a comfortable position in life and another person attains a miserable position. Those in the mood of passion say that humans, animals and birds are all jivas and they believe in previous and future lives, but they do not believe in a pure spiritual destination beyond the gross material realm. Persons of mixed passion and goodness believe in elevation to higher planets but not the spiritual world. Those in the mode of goodness believe in the undifferentiated Brahman beyond the material world as the goal of the jiva. Those bewildered by Maya consider the jiva in this manner. Those who succeed in piercing the three gunas, and therefore can reason without prejudice, accept with devotion the words of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Lord is the master of the potencies, and the living entity is the servant of them. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. However, you declare that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same. In Bhagavad Gita the living entity is established as the marginal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet you say that the living entity is completely non-different from the Lord. CC Madhya 6, 162-3 It is the living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna because he is the marginal energy of Krishna and a manifestation simultaneously one and different from the Lord, like a molecular particle of sunshine or fire. CC Madhya 20.108-9 Forgetting Krishna, the living entity has been attracted by the external feature from time immemorial. Therefore the illusory energy gives him all kinds of misery in his material existence. CC Madhya 20. 117 Rudra, Lord Shiva, has various forms, which are transformations brought about by association with Maya. Although Rudra is not on level with the Yuva Tattvas, he still cannot be considered a personal expansion of Lord Krishna. Milk is transformed into yogurt when it associates with a yogurt culture. Thus yogurt is nothing but milk, but still it is not milk. CC Madhya 20. 308-309 To impregnate with the seeds of living entities, the Lord himself does not directly touch the material energy, but by a specific functional expansion, he touches the material energy, and thus the living entities, who are his parts and parcels, are impregnated into material nature. CC Madhya 20, 273 Expansion of his personal self like the quadruple manifestations descend as incarnations from Vaikuntha to this material world. The separated expansions are living entities. Although they are expansions of Krishna, they are counted among his different potencies. The living entities are divided into two categories. Some are eternally liberated, and others are eternally conditioned. CC Madhya 22, 9-10 Those equipped with sattvika knowledge, when they consider the opposite of material knowledge, conclude that there is no difference between the jiva, individual, and Brahman, supreme. Whatever differences are perceived are apparent only, not really spiritual. They have three schools of thought. Among them, some believe that the idea of difference, between Jiva and Brahman, is false, being but a perception due to Maya. By the imposition of ignorance, the Jiva perceives an illusion of difference, like the sky and the pot containing a portion of sky. When ignorance disappears, the illusion of difference ceases, and only the great sky or Brahman remains. At that time the Jiva or the false ego disappears. This doctrine is called Parikata Parikanavada. The second school believes that Brahman is reality and the Jiva is a perception of its reflection due to ignorance. The Jiva has no actual existence. Ignorance is a particular function of Maya Sakti. When the ignorance is removed, the existence of Jiva ceases. The third school says that actually nothing exists. There is some disturbance called Maya by which there is a perception of difference. Reviewing these theories, one can understand that they are all pompous talk generated from logic. By skillful logic, they can be quickly defeated. These philosophies arise by taking support from some portions of the Vedas, but they are not the conclusion of the Vedas. The conclusion of the Vedas is that the Lord is naturally the controller of Maya and the Jiva is naturally controlled by Maya. The Vedas say, the controller of Maya, the Lord, creates the material universe by Maya. The Jiva, different from the Lord, falls under the control of Maya in the material world. Maya is an energy of the Lord and the Lord is the controller of Maya. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4. 9-10. Thus the Jiva is, under no condition, the same as the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Jiva is called energy. That means the Jiva cannot be the same as the Lord. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence and false ego, altogether these 8 comprise my separated material energies. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which are all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. B.G. 7.4-5. The Jiva is the servant of Krishna. The Jiva is the marginal energy of Krishna, being simultaneously different and non-different from the Lord. That means that the Jiva is neither completely different from the Lord, nor absolutely identical with the Lord. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, the Purusa or Jiva has 2 locations, the material world and the spiritual world. The Jiva is situated at a third position, called Swapnasthana, on the border between these 2 places. Situated in this marginal place, he can see both the material and spiritual worlds. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4. April 3, 2018. This marginal position is described as follows: just as a large fish living in the river wanders from one bank to the other, so the Jiva is of similar quality, and is equipped to wonders in the Karana waters between the material and spiritual worlds, Svapnanta and Budanta. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4. April 3, 2018. Though all the jivas are generated from the Supreme Lord through the Tattva Sakti, they have a separate existence from Him. They may be compared to the atoms in the sun's rays, or the sparks or a fire. Just as sparks arise from fire, all the jivas arise from Krishna, the Supreme Soul. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad February 1, 2020. From this it may be determined that jivas are small, separate conscious particles which may find their place either in the material or spiritual worlds due to their dual nature, Tatastha. But their essential nature is to be the servant of Krishna. The moment that the jivas desire to enjoy independently while gazing at the 2 banks of the river, they become averse to Krishna, who is like the sun. They are called by Maya, who is situated close by, to accept a place of enjoyment. Due to loss of remembrance of Krishna, they are averse to Krishna with no beginning. They are in this state due to misuse of their independence. One should not attribute this unfortunate situation to fault or cruelty on the part of Krishna, for Krishna has no responsibility at all for the misuse that the Jiva makes of his spiritual quality of independence. When this misuse takes place, Krishna places the jivas like seeds in the material world, through a special functional expansion, Mahavishnu. See above. CC Madhya 20.273. Krishna does not touch matter, but through the form of Mahavishnu, who glances upon matter, he places the offending jivas in matter. Due to this offense, matter or Maya punishes the jivas by inflicting the sufferings of repeated births in the material world. The Lord has 2 types of expansions, Svatansa and Vibhanatansa. The Katurvayu and avatars are all Svatansa. The jivas are Vibhanamsha. The difference between Svansa and Vibhanatansa is that the Svarnsa entities are always endowed with all powers, and always identify themselves as the Lord. Krishna's desire is their desire. They have no independence. The Vibhanatansa eternally identify themselves as separate from Krishna. Being of small form, the jivas have small power, and their desires are separate from Krishna's. In this manner, though unlimited jivas emanate from Krishna, they do not in any way decrease the perfect nature of Krishna. The offense of turning from Krishna occurs before the entrance of all jivas into matter. Because the root of this offense occurs before material time, it is called beginningless aversion to Krishna, anadi bahirmukata. Because of transformation due to association with matter, Rudra also is different and non-different from the Lord. He is not the Svartipa of Krishna. By contact with tamarind, milk becomes yogurt. It is not something completely different from milk, but it is not milk as well. CCCM 20.307-9. In the Paramatma Sundarbha, 19, of Yuva Goswami Jaimitara quote from the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda is found describing the Yuva. The Yuva is the shelter of knowledge, has the quality of knowledge, is conscious, non-material, without birth, unchanging, has one natural form, is a particle, eternal, pervasive, full of knowledge and bliss, has a sense of I, is master of his body, does not decrease, is a separate form, cannot be burned, cut, or dried and is indestructible. He is the servant of the Lord. Shelter of knowledge means that the Yuva is a knower, having the quality of knowledge means that knowledge is his attribute. The Yuva is beyond matter, he has no birth or change, and is more subtle than the material atoms. Pervasive means that the Yuva pervades his whole body. He identifies himself as I, he is the master of his body, is separate from the Lord's form, and is devoid of impermanent qualities. Narada in the Pavikaratra has spoken of the Tatastha Sakti. Yat Tatastartu Siddharapam Svakath Vedayad Vinargatam. The particle of consciousness emanating from the Cit Sakti is called Tatastha. Yuva Goswami has explained about the nature of the Tatastha Sakti. The Tatastha or Yuva Sakti is different from Maya Sakti. It is not considered in the category of Maya. However, because of the fault of being overcome by ignorance, the Yuva Sakti cannot be considered in the category of Paramatma, which is free from the influence of Maya. Though the Yuva is the Sakti of the Paramatma, Paramatma is not touched by the Yuva's contamination of ignorance. Though a particular ray of the Sunday may be covered by shadow, the sun is not covered. Paramatma Sundarbha 37. These jivas are of two types, eternally conditioned and eternally liberated. SN Yuva says, the number of jivas is unlimited. They are divided into two classes. One class is favorable to the Lord without beginning. The other class is averse to the Lord without beginning. The first class is favorable to the Lord because of knowledge of relationship with the Lord. The second class is averse to the Lord because of lack of that knowledge. The favorable jivas are all recipients of the Lord's splendid internal energy. They are the eternal associates of the Lord, such as Garuda. They are not in the category of the Lord, as in shown by the scriptures. They are still Tatastha or Yuva. The second class of jivas is devoid of the help of the internal energy as they are averse to the Lord. Because of this lack, they are overwhelmed by Maya and take repeated birth in the material world. Paramatma Sundarbha 47. Paramatma is the spiritual sun. All the jivas are particles of his rays. The real nature of the Yuva is purely spiritual. The Yuva is by nature possessed of individual identity. Because of the nature of Tatastha Sakti which emanates from the inconceivable energy of Paramatma, the Yuva, being minute, is liable to fall under the control of Maya. In the verse of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna teaches that the Yuva is a superior energy to Maya, and thus the Yuva is not qualitatively different from Paramatma, nor is he the same. The Yuva is controlled by Maya and the Lord is the controller of Maya. Through this scriptural statement it is understood that the Yuva is simultaneously different and non-different from the Lord. The doctrine of absolute monism is not according to Vedic evidence. If the Yuva is under the control of Maya, one cannot say that everything is Maya. According to the doctrine of Maya, the Yuva is a temporary phenomenon, like a reflection. When we say the Yuva is controlled by Maya, it means that spiritual particle called Yuva is different from Maya and is capable of falling under the influence of Maya because of his minute nature. Maya is inferior energy and the Yuva is composed of superior energy. The function of Maya is material identification. The Yuva is a separate category, a spiritual being. Though the Five is absorbed in Maya, it does not lose its nature as Yuva. The Mayavada philosophy is erroneous. The opinions of those contaminated by this error are ridiculous. According to them, Brahman is one, uncontaminated. Then how is it possible that this Brahman becomes divided? How can there be any freedom from fear once the Yuva has attained oneness? The examples of the rope and snake, shell and silver are inappropriate. Rather than prove the concept of Advaita, they defeat it. If one tries to say that Maya dissolves in Brahman, the concept of absolute Advaita fails. If one argues that Maya is desire, how does that desire act? By whose desire does Maya act? If Brahman is the source of this desire, then Brahman is not unchanging. If one maintains the changeless nature of Brahman and existence of the desire of Maya, Then there rises another being opposing Braham, which divides up the desireless Braham. That is a great disaster for Braham. If one images that Braham becomes Isvara and then creates the world of Maya, in the absence of independent desire of Braham, it means that Braham becomes unfortunately controlled by one of its energies. Thus Mayavada is an unauthorized doctrine, contrary to all the Vedas. By material logic, the non-material subject of the Vedas becomes lost. If a person has faith in the Lord's inconceivable energy, his knowledge becomes perfect. Accepting that Braham is non-dual and changeless, if one also accepts that Braham has inconceivable energy, both the changeless state and desire can harmoniously coexist and act without contradiction. The Vedas say, Sa eksada, he glanced. This statement illustrates that by the Lord's desire alone, his inconceivable energy creates the material energy, the jivas and the spiritual energies. If one believes in this inconceivable energy, his doubts will be dissipated. In the words, Naham manye suvidetino naveti veda ca, one do not think I know Braham well. I know and I do not know, of the Kana Upanishad, the inconceivable energy is accepted. In the statement Vasuparna, two birds on a tree, the eternal difference is taught, and in Tattvamasi, you are that, eternal non-difference is taught. There is no contradiction anywhere in the perfect Vedas. Thus, the Vedas conclude that the existence of Chapter 7, the Yuva in Maya, the Yuva's quality of Tattva was discussed in the previous chapter. Because of this quality, the Yuva, devoid of knowledge of the Lord, becomes overcome by Maya situated close by. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is written, apart from the ever-liberated devotees, there are the conditioned souls who always turn away from the service of the Lord. They are perpetually conditioned in this material world and are subjected to the material tribulations brought about by different bodily forms in hellish conditions. Due to his being opposed to Krishna consciousness, the conditioned soul is punished by the witch of the external energy, Maya. He is thus ready to suffer the threefold miseries brought about by the body and mind, the inimical behavior of other living entities and natural disturbances caused by the demigods. In this way the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires, and when these are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy, Maya. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician, whose instructions and hymns make the witch of external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with the devotional service of Lord Krishna, and in this way he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. C.C. Madhya 22, 12-15. The Svetasvatara Upanishad speaks of the Yuva and bondage. Though the Yuva is situated in a material body, it is a subtle entity, non-material in nature. Even if the tip of a hair is divided up 100 times, and one part is divided again 100 times, it cannot compare to the minuteness of the soul. Svetasvatara Upanishad 5.9. Though the Yuva is situated in matter is weak, he is still non-material, equipped with immortal qualities. Naiva stri pumane sanaka evayatana putansaka yadyak chera ramadate tenatena sayujiate. Only the Yuva's material body is characterized as male, female or neuter. The Yuva dwells in the body obtained as a result of past actions. Svetasvatara Upanishad 5.10. The Yuva is actually a spiritual entity. By external vision, Yuva may appear as male or female, but that is not the real nature of Yuva. The Yuva takes many types of material bodies according to his actions through his desires, touch, sight, illusion, eating, water, and rain. Svetasvatara Upanishad 5.11. The Yuva attains numerous forms of gross and subtle bodies through qualities he develops. And through the quality of action and self, he becomes covered by other bodies. Svetasvatara Upanishad 5.22. The Yuva, having fallen into the deep hole of repeated birth in the material world, develops faith by taking shelter of devotees. When he understands Paramatma as the creator of the universe, dwelling in the universe and acting as the source of unlimited avatars, he becomes free from the bondage of Maya. Svetasvatara Upanishad 5.13. In the Amnaya Sutras 35-38, 1. The conditioned Yuva is described thus. Being averse to the Lord, the jivas becomes absorbed in ignorance. Because of this, they forget their true identity or form. Having forgotten their identity, from selfish enjoyment and action, they accept terrible restriction or bondage. Identification of self with gross and subtle material bodies is the cause of their suffering in the world. The Yuva is a spiritual, conscious, knowing entity. The Yuva appeared by the marginal energy at the dividing line between spirit and matter. From that position, he began to gaze at the spiritual and material worlds. Those jivas who were attracted somewhat to realization of the Supreme Person became desirous of the spiritual realm because of that contact of knowledge. They then obtained strength from the Ladini potency of the abundant Siddhi Sakti, which made them favorable to the Lord eternally, and they were brought into the spiritual world as associates of the Lord. Those who, by their own free will, became bewildered and became greedy for Maya situated on the opposite side, being beckoned by Maya, then became attracted to the material universe, and were thrown in the universe by Karanarnavashayi Vishnu, the controller of Maya. That was but the result of their eternal aversion to the Supreme Lord. The moment they entered the material realm, they became overcome by ignorance, the function of Maya. Overcome by ignorance, they fell into the wheel of binding karma in order to become fully absorbed in their task. Such jivas have been compared to a bird enjoying the fruit of karma. Kshirodasa Vishnu and the Yuva are living like friends in the tree of the temporary material world. The Yuva is eating the fruits of the tree according to his karma. The other bird, Paramatma, is not enjoying the fruit but serving as witness. Svetasvatara Upanishad, 4.6, Mundaka Upanishad, 3. 1.1. In the same tree, the Yuva, bewildered by Maya, has fallen into lamentation. Svetasvatara Upanishad, 4.7, Mundaka Upanishad, 3. 1.2. It is written in the Srimad Bhagavatam, being averse to knowledge of God, the Yuva, becoming absorbed in the second principle, material ignorance, then experienced fear of repeated birth, misidentified himself with the material body, viparyaya, and fell into forgetfulness of his true form, asmarsh. Srila Bhaktivinoda's translation, S.B.11. 2.37. The first result of contact with Maya, ignorance, was mistaken identity concerning the Yuva's true form. Forgetting his spiritual form, the Yuva took on a material form, and through his self-identity fell into deep forgetfulness of his role as servant of the Lord. Maya bestowed two coverings, the gross and subtle bodies, over the spiritual form. The subtle body is composed of material ego, material memory, material intelligence and material mind. These are the sitting places of lust, anger, greed, illusion, intoxication and envy. These six became the cause of the Yuva's elevation or degradation, depending on whether the actions are enacted according to scriptural injunction or not, punya or papa. The pure spiritual identity of the Yuva became covered by the false ego of the subtle body. But as the subtle body does not act or enjoy on its own, the gross body composed of skin, flesh, blood, bone, marrow, fat and semen, 7 dhatus, was imposed on the Yuva along with birth, maintenance, growth, reproduction, aging and death, 6 transformations. Obtaining the gross body, the Yuva became even more entangled in his misidentification. Then the Yuva began to think of himself as a material gross body. By mistaking his true identity, the Yuva fell into the tight bondage of action impelled by desires. The rules of Varnasrama determine his permissible, unpermissible and neutral actions, daily, seasonal and individual duties, and the resultant enjoyment and suffering. Innumerable obstacles arose as a result of the connection with the gross and subtle bodies. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, the Atma according to his actions attains a situation. By good actions he becomes good, by sinful action he becomes sinful. By punya the Yuva attains happiness and by papa the Yuva attains suffering. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 4. 4.5. The Bhagavatam says, in order to maintain his so-called family and society, the fool, burning with anxiety, laden with unfulfilled hopes, performs all kinds of sinful activities. S.B.3. 30.7. The meaning of these two statements is clear. The Yuva, through his coverings of gross and subtle material bodies, becomes bound by samara and experiences suffering through actions of punya and papa. The Sarvahya Sikta quoted in Bhagavad Sandarbha says, the Supreme Lord is full of eternity, knowledge and bliss, being embraced by his energies Hladini and Samvit. The Yuva experiences so many sufferings in the material world, being covered by his own ignorance. In Paramatma Sandarbha, Yuva Goswami says that Maya has two propensities, knowledge and ignorance. Knowledge is born of real mercy of Maya. The ignorance function is the special energy of Maya to punish the Yuva for his offenses. He further says, this ignorance has two functions called the Avarana-atmika function and the Viksepa-atmika function. The first function covers the Yuva's knowledge of his natural relationship with the Lord. The second function gives rise to other types of knowledge, throwing the Yuva into ignorance. Paramatma Sandarbha 54. On this there is a Karika. The Vedas have said that the three qualities, goodness, passion and ignorance, are the material qualities. The Yuva is by nature without these qualities. When the Yuva, because of his smallness, opposes the Lord and becomes weak, the material qualities become strong and overcome him. The knowledge that the Yuva is spiritual and a servant of Krishna is covered, and because of the contact with material modes, the Yuva falls into complete bondage of karma. By acceptance of the gross and subtle bodies, the jiva falls into the ocean of six material qualities, and becoming overwhelmed, experiences happiness and distress in the wheel of birth and death. This state of the pure jiva is called an unfortunate state of the jiva, imposed by Maya. It exists due to the marginal quality inherent in the jiva. The jiva is actually a pure entity, and ignorance, the function of Maya, is but an upati or temporary covering. The results of this upati are the three miseries adhyatmika, adhidavika and adhibhatika. Another work by Bhaktivinoda, Chapter 8. The jiva's liberation from Maya. Though the jiva, overcome by Maya, is bound by the chains of beginningless impressions and karma, he does not lose his marginal form and quality. Though the influence of Maya is strong, and the inherent consciousness of being the servant of Krishna is weak, it still remains intact. Given the opportunity, his real nature will gradually manifest. The opportunity is provided by the saintly devotees of the Lord. Thus the Svetasvatara Upanishad says, the meaning of the Vedas is revealed to the person who has devotion to the Guru as he has pure devotion for the Supreme Lord. Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6.23. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, there are unlimited conditioned souls who are bereft of Lord Krishna's service. Not knowing how to cross the ocean of nesads, they are scattered by waves, time and tide. However, some are fortunate to contact devotees, and by this contact they are delivered from the ocean of nesads, just as log, floating down a river, accidentally washes upon the bank. By good fortune, one becomes eligible to cross the ocean of nesads, and when one's term of material existence decreases, one may get an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. By such association, one's attraction to Krishna is awakened. C.C. Madhya 22.43, 45. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. C.C. Madhya 22.54. One is immediately freed from the clutches of Maya if he seriously and sincerely says, "My dear Lord Krishna, although, have forgotten you for so many long years in the material world, today I am surrendering unto you. Am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service." C.C. Madhya 22.33. When, by destiny, bhagya, a person's entanglement in Maya decreases, he becomes qualified for association of devotees. One may ask concerning this statement, what is destiny? If destiny is the cause of destruction of samsara, then how can one say that faith or association with devotees is the cause? Destiny is moreover a blind or impersonal factor. If that is the sole cause of auspiciousness for the jiva, then the jiva will have no inclination to initiate his own attempts. Though it is easy to reason in this matter, it brings about a lot of difficulty in the end. To find the real truth, it is necessary to examine the basic tendency of the jiva. When the jiva's nature, svabhava, is formed, the only doer, or responsible being, is the Supreme Lord. No one else exists. Free will or independence is implicit with formation of anything spiritual. The relation to the Creator remains only in the creation itself. All actions of the spiritual jiva after his creation have no relation to the Lord. The jiva equipped with full independence first becomes either favorable or averse to the Lord. This is the first act of the jiva. In that, the jiva is the prime doer. At the time of that activity, the Lord is only the accompanying doer, in that he gives the results to the jiva's activities. Having entered ignorance, the material realm, the doers become threefold. 1. The jiva becomes the prime doer for all activities. 2. Matter, which assists the jiva, becomes the secondary doer. 3. The Lord, in giving the fruits, becomes the associated doer. Though the jiva by his free will has become overcome by ignorance, he does not lose his responsibility as the prime doer. Whatever actions the jiva performs after entering the material world are called destiny or bhagya when they begin to yield their reactions. The destinies of an atheist and religious person are not judged in the same way. According to the actions of the jiva, the particular results are given. The results of action are of two types, material and spiritual. Through action motivated by material gain, a person receives material results. Through actions aiming for spiritual goals, a person develops a spiritual result. All actions performed with spiritual intention, such as service to devotees, chanting the name of the Lord and service to the Lord, are spiritual. All these devotional actions, performed in whatever manner, produce an impression, in the form of desire for devotion. When this impression gradually grows, it attains the name of good fortune, saubhagya. With the advancement of this saubhagya, the attraction for material enjoyment weakens. When the material desires become very weak, the saubhagya, desire for devotion, becoming stronger, and transforms into faith, by the association of devotees. This faith produces more association, and bestows all success. The steps in the creation of Saubhagya for the Yuva may be studied from the life story of Narada. In Srimad Bhagavatam it says, "O Muni, in the last millennium I was born as the son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, was engaged in their personal service. Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, became purified in heart, and at that time the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. Vyasadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna, and thus listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step." S.B.1.5.23, 25, 26 and so, O Brahmana Vyasadeva, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death, as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, quit the body made of 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of works stopped. S.B.1.6.27, 28 The conclusion is this: when bhagya arises from many births of Shukritas, faith also arises, through association of devotees. From this faith arises devotional action, clearance of material desires, steadiness, taste, attachment and attraction for Krishna. Where bhagya appears in a person's life, faith also is seen. Therefore faith and association of devotees is the root of all auspiciousness. There is a karika in this connection: the subtle and gross bodies bind the yuva in a cage. In this situation the yuva is always lamenting. Sometimes, through good fortune, he is released from bondage by the association of devotees. Mukta bandha dasa bhidak caitanyas yad dasa deva yam mukta hivan yaltha rupam svartapina vyavastishiyatayanta dukkahanausasiyid sukaptir nasatansaya. The yuva has 2 conditions, in bondage and liberation. Giving up false conditions, and becoming situated in one's real condition is called mukti or liberation. There is no doubt that, with liberation, suffering ceases and bliss is attained. Svetasvatara Upanishad says, when the yuva looks towards the Supreme Lord, worthy of his worship, his lamentation disappears and he attains glory as a servant of Krishna. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4.7 Liberation and bondage are the 2 states of the yuva. Liberated jivas are of 2 types, eternally liberated, nitya mukta, and liberated from maya, maya mukta. The eternally liberated jivas are never bound by maya. The maya muktas, first having entered maya, later enter the spiritual pastimes after being liberated from maya by association of devotees. What is the form of the yuva in liberation? Some say that the yuva's liberation is the absolute cessation of misery, some say it is merging with the Lord or Brahman. However, those who are wise say, liberation means being situated in one's eternal original form, which he attains after giving up the changeable gross and subtle bodies. SB 2. 10.6 The yuva is a spiritual form, the pure servant of Krishna. Entrance into maya is a distortion to his form. When he rejects maya and becomes situated in his true form, that state is called mukti, or liberation. When knowledge of his true form becomes extremely indefinite, he has a tendency to merge into the Lord, and when the knowledge of his form is clear, he attains the status of a pure servant of Krishna. Liberation is not merely the cessation of all miseries, but the attainment of spiritual bliss along with the cessation of miseries. The characteristics of liberation are mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad. Having attained liberation, giving up the gross and subtle bodies, the yuva becomes equipped with a spiritual effulgent form. He is a spiritual person. In the spiritual world he eats, plays and becomes absorbed in bliss. Chandogya Upanishad 8. 12.3 According to the Vedas, this is the ultimate liberation. The Chandogya Upanishad also describe the 8 qualities attained by the yuva in liberation. The yuva is without sin, or free from relation with sin and ignorance. He is free from old age, being ever young. He is deathless, never leaving his spiritual body. He is peaceful, being free from lamentation, suffering and craving. He is devoid of desire for enjoyment. He is without thirst, with no desire other than to serve the Lord. He has only desires to serve the Lord favorably. Whatever desires he has are fulfilled. Chandogya Upanishad 8.7.1 These 8 qualities do not exist in the conditioned yuva. One should know the difference between the conditioned and liberated jivas by searching the scriptures. Though the goal of liberation is laudable, the final attainment in liberation must only be the happiness of service to Bhagavan. As there is a danger of losing sight of the main goal by aspiring for secondary goals, It is better not to aspire for liberation. Those who hold in their hearts the desire for liberation from the beginning cannot attain advancement in the eternal rases of bhakti. However much a person may take shelter of karma or jnana, without attaining the mercy of Krishna, he cannot attain even mukti. Among the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam, liberation is the 9th, but the happiness of service to the shelter, Krishna, is the 10th. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th subject matter, the shelter of the devotees, is described. I pay my respects to that supreme goal, the goal of the universe, whose name is Krishna. Bhavarthadipka 10.1 Those who develop the happiness of serving Krishna in their heart have in their grasp all the other 9 topics of Bhagavatam, including liberation. To make this fact clear, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "The followers of the Varnasrama institution accept the regulative principles of the 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. However, if one carries out the regulative principles of these orders but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into the hellish condition of material life." There are many philosophical speculators belonging to the Mayavada school who consider themselves liberated and call themselves Narayana. However, their intelligence is not purified unless they engage in Krishna's devotional service. CC Madhya 22.26, 29 Since mukti cannot be attained by practice of karma, jnana, yoga, austerity or any other process, even the jnanis utilize bhakti, though in a polluted form, to attain liberation. The pure devotee does not even pray for such liberation, but that liberation humbly submits herself to their service. O Lord, if you think our devotion is fixed, then reveal your transcendental youthful form in our hearts. Prayers for dharma, artha, kama and moksha are no longer necessary, because mukti herself, with folded hands, stands waiting to service us. Dharma, artha, and kama remain waiting our orders to serve your lotus feet. Krishna Karnamrta 107 The liberation obtained by the devotees is of 2 types, Svarpa Mukti and Vasta Mukti. One who, due to practice, attains his spiritual form even in this material world, is served by liberation before giving up the material body. Though the body belongs to the material world, the soul is absorbed directly in the spiritual world. One should understand that such a person has attained Svarpa Mukti. When such a person gives up his material body he attains Vasta Mukti by Krishna's mercy. The liberation of the Advaita Vadas is of 2 types, Brahma Suja, merging into the effulgence of the Lord, and Isvara Suja merging into the Lord's body. Neither of these types of liberation is the natural position of the Jiva. In the Brahmanda Purana these people are described. Siddhaloka, the abode of Braham, lies beyond the material world. In that place reside the asuras such as Kamiya killed by the Lord and the Mayavadis absorbed in the bliss of Braham. Brahmanda Purana The Jnanis and yogis, though they attempt to separate themselves from the material energy by meditations such as Aham Brahmasmi and Tattvamasi, do not obtain the supreme spiritual goal of being situated in their spiritual bodies. Chapter 9 The material world and the Jiva are simultaneously different and non-different from the Lord Dibheda. On studying the Vedas and Vedanta, the Acharyas have come to 2 different conclusions. On the basis of the conclusions of Dattatreya, Astavakra, Durvasa and other Rasas, Sankaracharya preached the philosophy of absolute monism. That is one type of conclusion. On the other hand, following in the footsteps of Narada, Prahlada, Dhruva, Manu and others, the Vaisnavas have preached the philosophy of pure bhakti. That is the second type of conclusion reached from studying the scriptures. There are 4 types of bhakti philosophy. Ramanujacharya preached Visistadvaita, Madhvacarya preached Suddhadvaita, Nimbarkacharya preached Devadadvaita, and Visnusvami preached Suddhadvaita. They are all preachers of pure bhakti. According to Ramanujacharya, there is only one reality, the Lord, Advaita, who is qualified, Visista, by Cit and Asat. According to Madhvacarya, the Jiva is a reality or entity distinct from the Lord, Dvaita, but has a nature of devotion to the Lord. According to Nimbarka, the Jiva is simultaneously different and non-different from the Lord, Dvaita Advaita, but he accepts the concept of eternal difference of Jiva and the Lord. According to Visnusvami, though there is only one substance, Advaita, there are still eternal states of difference in the form of Brahman and Jiva. Though there are differences amongst the philosophies, all the Vaisnava-acharyas have accepted the eternal nature of bhakti, Bhagavan, the Jiva's eternal servitorship and the goal of prema. They are true Vaisnavas. But though they are all Vaisnavas, their realizations, being slightly different for each other, were partial or imperfect. When Mahaprabhu appeared, he removed incompleteness from those realizations and taught the world the pure science, the highest truth of pure bhakti. In his Vedanta Siddhara, Srila Vyasadeva has described that everything is but a transformation of the energy of the Lord. Sankaracharya, however, has misled the world by commenting that Vyasadeva was mistaken. Thus he has raised great opposition to theism throughout the entire world. According to founder-acharya, by accepting the theory of the transformation of the energy of the Lord, one creates an illusion by indirectly accepting that the absolute truth is transformed. Transformation of energy is a proven fact. It is the false bodily conception of the self that is an illusion. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is opulent in all respects. Therefore by his inconceivable energies he has transformed the material cosmic manifestation. Using the example of a touchstone, which by its energy turns iron to gold and yet remains the same, we can understand that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead transforms his innumerable energies, he remains unchanged. Although touchstone produces many varieties of valuable jewels, it nevertheless remains the same. It does not change its original form. Brahman, who is greater than the greatest, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is full of six opulences, and therefore he is the reservoir of ultimate truth and absolute knowledge. When we speak of the Supreme as impersonal, we deny his spiritual potencies. Logically, if you accept half of the truth, you cannot understand the whole. CC Madhya 7.121-126, 138, 140. The personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are categorized in three cases, namely, ablative, instrumental and locative. CC Madhya 6.144. Are you describing as formless that Supreme Personality of Godhead whose transcendental form is complete with six transcendental opulences? CC Madhya 6.152. Vedavyasa in the Vedanta Sutras has taught Parinyamavad, transformation, not Vivardhavada, illusion. But founder-acharya, claiming that in Parinyamavada the Lord becomes subject to change, changed the meaning of the Sutras and established Vivardhavada. The meaning of the words Parinyama and Vivarta are given in the Vedanasara written by Siddhananda Yogendra, 59 verse. The perception of a different object when a real object takes another form is called parinma. Perception of a different object when there is actually no different object is called Vivarta. Parinyama is transformation of an object. The example is the formation of yogurt from milk. An example of Vivarta is mistaking a rope for a snake. Taking these definitions, the followers of founder-acharya say that the jiva and the material world can never be a transformation of the Lord. If one accepts such a transformation of the Lord, it must be considered a perverted state of the Lord. As yogurt is a perverted state of milk, one must say that the world is a perverted state of the Lord. Therefore, they say, parinma is not acceptable. If out of ignorance a person accepts a rope as a snake, from that mistake many difficulties arise. They claim the perception of the material world is similar to this. The world does not exist. Out of ignorance that which is perceived as world is actually an illusion, Vivarta. By accepting this proposition, the Lord is not subject to change or transformation. By such reasoning, the theory of Vivarta is established. Mahaprabhu's teaching is as follows. There is no substance to the theory of Vivartavada. Thinking the material body to be the self is comparable to the mistaking a rope for a snake. That is Vivarta. However, the material body is not false. And to claim that the Lord, through illusion or Vivarta, becomes the material body and the material world, that the Lord falls under the illusion of thinking he is a jiva, is a detestable belief. Parinyama is accepted in the Vedanta Sutras of Vyasa. By rejecting Parinyama, one admits that all knowledgeable Vyasa is mistaken. Just as milk transforms into yogurt, the Lord's inconceivable energy, by his wish, is transformed into the jiva and the material world. There is no transformation of the Lord or Brahman. What is transformed through the influence of the Lord's variegated, inconceivable energies can never make the Lord the object of transformation. Though a material example cannot fully represent spiritual matters, by accepting an example one can clarify a spiritual topic. Thus it is stated that touchstone, though producing piles of jewels, remains unchanged. On the spiritual level, one can think of the Lord's creations in the same way. Though creating unlimited jivas and unlimited universes by his inconceivable energy just by his will, the Supreme Lord remains without change. One should not think the words without change make the Lord impersonal, absolutely without quality. The absolute truth is endowed with the six opulences in full as Bhagavan. By claiming the Lord is absolutely without qualities, one is claiming he is without spiritual energies. However, by his inconceivable energies, the Lord is eternally endowed with qualities as well as being devoid of qualities. To claim absolute absence of qualities is acceptance of only half of the Lord's form. By this, one is destroying his completeness. The three ways in which the Lord is the cause, ablative, instrumental, locative, from whom, by whom and in whom everything exists, is explained in the Sruti. Inquire about the Brahman from whom everything is born, by whom everything is sustained, and into whom everything enters. Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1 From whom all beings are born describes the Lord in the ablative function. By whom all beings continue to live describes the Lord in his instrumental function. Into whom they enter describes his locative function. The Supreme Being is qualified by these characteristics, these are his qualities. Thus the Lord is always endowed with qualities, and can never be without form or qualities. The form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, full of the six opulences, is the Lord's eternal spiritual form. Srila Goswami in his Bhagavad Sundarbha has explained the Supreme Personality of Godhead as follows: there is one Supreme Being. He is naturally endowed with inconceivable energies. Through these energies he exists eternally in four states: his own form, his spiritual expansions, the UN Pradhana, matter. These four states may be compared to the sun's power, the sun globe, the sun's rays and the sun's effulgence. Bhagavat Sundarbha 16 in the above quotation, his own form, Svarupa, means the form of eternal bliss and knowledge. His spiritual abode, names, associates and all objects assisting in pastimes are the expansions, Vibhava. The eternally liberated and eternally conditioned souls are the Jivas. Maya and all the gross and subtle elements of the universe are indicated by the word Pradhana. These four manifestations are manifested from the eternal Supreme Being. How can eternally contradictory objects exist within the Supreme Being? For the intelligence of the Jiva, this is impossible, because the intelligence of Jiva is limited. However, by the inconceivable energy of the Lord, it is not impossible. Srila Goswami has called this conception Akantayabdabheda in his work Sarvasamvedini. The philosophy of difference and non-difference called Dvaita of Nimbarkacharya is not perfect, not explaining the contradiction. The Vaisnava world has received the perfection of this philosophy through the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Since the root of Akantayabdabheda lies in Madhvacharya's acceptance of the eternal form of the Lord, full of eternal bliss and knowledge, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the Madhva Sampradaya. Because the previous Vaisnava Acharya's philosophies all had a slight philosophical deficiency, they appeared as different sampradayas with mutually differing philosophies. By the power of his own omniscience, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has completed what is lacking in all these philosophies. Taking Madhva's acceptance of the eternal form of the Lord, Ramanuja's conception of the energies, qualities, of the Lord, Visnusvami's concept of the Lord oneness by complete dedication to him, and Nimbarka's conception of the Lord's simultaneous difference and non-difference, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made them perfect, mercifully offering to the world the pure scientific philosophy of Akantayabdabheda. Very soon there will be only one sampradaya of bhakti philosophy, called Sti Brahma Sampradaya. All other sampradayas will reach their perfection in this Brahma Sampradaya. There is the following karika to summarize this: if one examines all the statements of all the scriptures, one can understand that there is one eternal truth. The world is true, not a false object imagined through ignorance. It has arisen through the free will of the Supreme Lord, not through the Jiva. Perception of a false object is called vivarta. Though the world is temporary, it is real, having arisen through the glance or will of the Lord endowed with inconceivable energies. There is no factor of illusion or vivarta here. The Supreme Lord's inferior energy is Maya. By her will, this material world of moving and non-moving entities appears. The whole universe is at once identical with and different from the Lord by his inconceivable energy. Though the world is real, it is not the ultimate real. The Kathopanishad and Svetasvatara Upanishad prove this: Nityo Nityanam Satanam Satanyanam, I am the chief eternal and the chief of all conscious entities, exclusive duality, exclusive monism, pure monism or qualified monism. These philosophies all agree with some of the statements of the scriptures, but contradict other scriptural statements. But the philosophy of Akantayabdabheda is a philosophy which agrees with all the statements of scripture. It is the natural object of the faith of the Jiva and approved by all the devotees. The Jiva does not have an eternal relation with this material world, which is a transformation of the Supreme Brahman's energy, not a trans. Chapter 10 Sadhana of the Jiva, Pure Bhakti. A factual delineation of the sadhana of the Jiva will be presented, through examination of the nature of pure Bhakti, the qualification for Bhakti, the types of Bhakti and the various services of Bhakti. The nature of pure Bhakti is discussed by Sri Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu Parva Vibhaga 1.22, as well as Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19,167. To serve Krishna in a favorable mood by all the senses is called Krishna Bhakti. Being free from all desires except the desire to increase devotion to Krishna, without worshipping any other personality or devata as another lord, being devoted to Krishna alone, giving up all practice of jnana and karma, and serving Krishna with all the senses in a favorable mood, is called pure devotional service. Favorable, anukulya, refers to a pleasing attitude towards Krishna. It is possible to cultivate realization of Brahma or Paramatma by following the paths of jnana or yoga. But these are not bhakti, not being pleasing to the Lord. By the word jhana is meant cultivation of analytical knowledge in search for undifferentiated Brahman. However, for the perfection of the jiva, it is very necessary to have knowledge jnana, of the true nature of jiva, jada, matter, and Bhagavan and their relationships. This is included within the cultivation of devotional service. By the word karma is meant daily, nitya, periodic, naimatika, or personally motivated, kamya, rituals such as prayasiddha or atonement ceremonies, which are directed away from the Lord. Though the acts of service to Krishna seem almost like karma, because of the distinct quality of faith in Krishna, the activities are called bhakti rather than karma. The practice of detachment, vairagya, which is practiced before taking to bhakti is also a type of karma. Only the unmotivated, direct desire of the soul to serve Krishna is seen in the activities of bhakti. There are 4 qualities in the state of sadhana bhakti and 2 qualities in the stage of perfection of bhakti. 1. The first characteristic of sadhana bhakti is the destruction of miseries, constituted of ignorance, seed of sin, desire for sinful action, and reaction, and ignorance, seed of punya, desire to do punya and the actions of punya. 2. The second characteristic of sadhana bhakti is the bestowal all good qualities and pure happiness at the jiva, as well manifesting the affection from all living entities and to all living entities. 3. The third characteristic is to consider liberation as very insignificant. The fourth characteristic is its rare attainment. Even after performing all the activities of bhakti for a long time, if the person does not have deep attachment to the goal, he cannot attain prema. Greater than the fifth quality is the intense bliss. 6. The sixth quality is the ability to attract even Krishna. The last 2 manifest in the stage of perfection. Brs Parva Vibhaga 1.17. The first 4 qualities are also seen in the perfect stage of bhakti. The first part of the perfect stage is called bhava bhakti. At this stage, the first 4 qualities appear in full. The final stage of perfect bhakti is prema. In the stage of practice, there is sadhana bhakti, and in the stage of perfection, sadhya, there is bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. Pure logic can never hope to capture the essence of bhakti. However, if logic is obedient to favorable inclination to Krishna, then bhakti may be understood. In this chapter only sadhana bhakti will be discussed. The quality of sadhana bhakti is this: when a person tries to attain the goal of pure bhakti, sadhya bhava, through utilization of his senses, kritya, it is called sadhana bhakti. The goal is eternally perfect, nitya siddhasaya, but that practice by which it becomes manifest in the heart, prakatyam hridi, is called sadhana. Brs Parva Vibhaga 2.2. Types of bhakti. The import here is that the suitable method by which a person is able to absorb his mind in Krishna is called sadhana bhakti or upaya bhakti. This sadhana bhakti is of 2 types, Vaiyi and Raganuga. Sadhana bhakti is called Vaiyi bhakti when the soul practices devotion to Krishna according to the regulation of scriptures, lacking natural attraction to Krishna. The rules of Vaiyi bhakti should be practiced by Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas and Sudras, by Brahmacharis, Gazas, Vanaprasthas and Sannyasis. This is glorified in the scriptures. In the Nartapapikharatra this is also described. All the activities prescribed in the scriptures to please the Lord are called sadhana bhakti, or upaya bhakti. By that means para bhakti or sadhya bhakti, upaya bhakti, is attained. Nartapapikharatra qualification, devotees according to faith. There are 3 types of people practicing sadhana bhakti: Sradhavan Janahaya Bhakti Adhikaryatama Madhyama Kanastha Shraddha Anusari. A faithful devotee is a truly eligible candidate for the loving service of the Lord. According to one's faith, one is classified as a topmost devotee, an intermediate devotee or an inferior devotee. CC Madhya 22. 64. The meaning of faith, Shraddha, is this: by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. This confident, firm faith, favorable to the discharge of devotional service, is called Shraddha. CC Madhya 22.62. To have firm faith that devotion to Krishna is the only means for the jiva, and that attempts at karma and jhvidana devoid of devotion are useless. Such a favorable inclination of the heart is called faith or Shraddha. If a person's faith is deep and unshakable, he is called an uttama adhikari. One whose faith is moderately firm is called a madhyama adhikari. The person who has no firm faith, such that he has danger of changing faith due to opposing arguments, is called a kanastha adhikari. There are 2 types of kanasthas: those whose faith is mixed with karma and jnana, and those whose faith is free from karma and jnana. Those free from karma and jnana can attain the Uttama level through devotee association. Those whose faith is mixed with karma and jnana progress only with great difficulty and the very strong mercy of devotees. Concerning the mixed faith of Ekanastha, Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami has written in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, a person who has only tender faith has a slight tendency to karma. Brs Parva Vibhaga 2.186 People of tender faith perform bhakti by means of the Varnashrama system and offering of the results of their work, karmarpana. Their bhakti is not real bhakti but a semblance of bhakti, bhakti abhasa. Their chanting of Hare Krishna is called shadow name abhasa, high name abhasa. If that bhakti harbors material desires or desire for liberation, it is called pratibimba name abhasa. In that case, such persons are called karmas or jhanis but not bhaktas. The kanastha-adhikari offering the result of his work or knowledge to Krishna, karma jnana arpana, without any desire other than to please Krishna, anyabhila sita sinya, is called Vaisnavabhasa, or Vaisnava-praya, almost a Vaisnava. Bhakti is devoid of cultivation of jnana, and vairagya and desire for mukti. When Ramananda was defining sadhana bhakti, Mahaprabhu gave the answer this is external, please say more. That was because this Ramananda was speaking of the Vaisnava-praya, on the stage of tender faith. Later, when Mahaprabhu replied this is correct, please say more, Ramananda had begun to discuss pure bhakti. Quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam, he gave a description of the devotee with firm faith, who rejects jnana, to attempt to understand the Lord by the ascending process, through knowledge gained by the material senses is called asrauta, but Krishna is not obtainable by mind, words and body. The devotee thus gives up the path of logic through observation of temporary external objects by the temporary senses, and hears from the mouths of the devotees devoid of the four defects of illusion, inattention, cheating and limited senses, and with direct realization of the truth. He serves by hearing about and glorifying Krishna with faith. Devoid of all false ego, he dedicates his whole life, body, mind and words, to hearing and chanting the authorized message of bhakti. Though unconquerable, the Lord becomes known and controlled by prema bhakti of this devotee, whatever status he occupies in the three worlds. Srila Bhaktivinoda's translation, S.B.10. 14.3 By the accumulation of devotional credits of many lifetimes, the jiva attains faith favorable for development of bhakti. With this faith, if the devotee minimizes his material needs just to maintain his life, real bhakti will arise. This is not the practice dry renunciation aiming at liberation. As long the witches of bhakti and mukti linger in the heart, how can pure bhakti arise? Brs Parva 2.16 The desire for mukti is quite contrary to bhakti. Among the 5 types of mukti, salakya, samipya, sartipya, sarsti and sujya mukti is extremely contrary. But the devotees do not even aspire for the 4 other types of mukti. As Srimad Bhagavatam says, a pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation salakya, sarsti, samipya, sarupya or akatva even though they are offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. S.B.3. 29.13 There is no special qualification for sadhana bhakti as there is in Varnasrama. Any person who develops faith, as described above, has the qualification for bhakti. Such a person, who is qualified for bhakti, being on a higher level of qualification, is not obligated to perform karma or to indulge in vikarma. Qualified for bhakti, he has no taste for sinful activity. If a sinful act by chance takes place, its effect is destroyed by bhakti itself. One does not depend on atonements, prayasiddha. As Srimad Bhagavatam says, one who has thus given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction to such sin. S.B.11. 5.42 Proper determination of one's qualification is the cause of all good qualities. Performing actions not suitable to one's qualification is the cause of all faults. Steadiness in one's own position, proper qualification for actions, is declared to be actual piety, whereas deviation from one's position is considered impiety. In this way the two are definitely ascertained. S.B.11. 21.2 Performing the activities of devotion with steadiness, as mentioned in the above verse, is the direction of the scriptures. The activities of bhakti being qualified with the requisite faith, the devotee performs the activities of Vaiya bhakti according to the scriptural injunctions. There are many angas or activities of bhakti, but they may be abbreviated as 64. These are, taking shelter of an authorized guru, taking initiation and teachings from guru, serving the guru, following the path of the previous devotees, inquiry about the ultimate truth, renouncing material enjoyment for Krishna, living in a devotional tirtha, accepting what is necessary to maintain the body, observing Ekadashi, respect for the asvatha and datri trees. These 10 angas are the beginning of devotional service, and must be practiced. The next 10 are, giving up material association, not making unqualified disciples, giving up big material endeavors, giving up studying of books devoid of bhakti, or superficial study of bhakti sastra, or argumentation on the same, not being miserly in dealings, not falling into lamentation, giving up disrespect to devatas, not giving agitation to other entities by one's work, giving up seva and nama aparadas, avoiding hearing criticism of Krishna or his devotees. These 10 are practiced by avoidance. The chief among all the 20 are taking shelter of Guru, taking initiation and serving the Guru, wearing the marks of a Vaisnava, wearing the names on the body, receiving the flower remnants, dancing before the Lord, offering obeisances, standing when the Lord approaches, following the procession of the Lord, going to the temple, parikrama, deity worship, service to the deity, singing, sankirtana, japa, vinapti, offering praise to the Lord, tasting prasadam, taking the foot wash, smelling the incense or flowers, touching the deity, seeing the deity, performing aritrika, seeing festivals, receiving the Lord's glance, offering things dear to oneself, putting forth all effort for Krishna's sake, surrender to the Lord's will in all cases, service to Tulasi, Bhagavatam, Madhura, and Vaisnavas, holding festivals along with the devotees, observance of Kartika Vrata, celebration of Janmashtami etc. serving the deity, relishing the meaning of the Bhagavatam in association of devotees, association with advanced devotees, Nama Sankirtana and living in Madhura. Even with a little practice of the last 5 items, a person can attain Bhava Bhakti. Amongst the items, some are engagement for the body, some for the senses, and some for the mind. In other words, Vai Sadhana Bhakti may be defined as the method of engaging the body, mind and senses in Krishna's service. Some devotees reach perfection by practice of one item, and others practice many. The material results which these activities yield are recorded in the scriptures, but these are only meant for encouraging the materialistic person. Actually, the main result of any of the items of sadhana bhakti is one attraction of the jiva to Krishna. Though the items of bhakti are classified as 64, they are factually only 9 items. As Srimad Bhagavatam says, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. S.B. 7. 5.23-24 Chaitanya Charitamrita says the same in Madhya Lila. 22.118. Those knowledgeable of bhakti do not say that the acts of karma are at any time an anga or activity of bhakti. Unless an action loses its fruit of intention and attains the form and name of causeless devotion, it does not become bhakti. Before karma transforms its very nature, it undergoes 3 stages: niskama karma, karma without material desire, karmapana, offering the results to Krishna, and karma yoga. When a person passes these 3 stages, the very form of karma, karma svadhyapa, changes and becomes devotional service. Thus Srimad Bhagavatam says, Tavat karmani kurvadananarvidyata yavatam atkatasravanata avashradha yavan najayat. As long as one is not satiated by fruit of activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by sravanam kirtanam Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. S.B. 11. 20.9 When a person becomes indifferent to karma, karma simply becomes jnana. When real faith in topics of Krishna arises, karma changes into bhakti. Concerning niskama karma and karmapana, Narada says, when brahmajana, essentially devoid of both karma and devotion to asayuta, has no good qualities, naturally karma, which by nature is inauspicious, even if it becomes niskama, without desire, cannot attain any good qualities, as long as it is not offered the Lord. SB 1. 5.12 How karma offered to the Lord, karmapana, becomes bhakti as described by Narada in Bhagavatam. If one tries to cure a sickness by the very cause of the sickness, the disease will never be cured. The cause of the disease of samsara of the jiva is karmakanda. Whether it is niskama, performed without desire for results, or offered to the Lord, it still does not yield destruction of samsara. Only after karma is accepted, only to the extent of maintaining the body does it lose its nature as karma. Only then can it transform into bhakti. Only when those karmas alone which are favorable for pleasing the Lord are accepted, and the person accepts sambandha jnana concerning bhakti, does all karma become bhakti yoga. Making all actions in relation to Krishna, and accepting the teachings concerning the Lord, the devotee should constantly chant and remember the qualities and names of Krishna. This is the instruction of the scriptures. 1s.b.1.5.33.36 Though jnana and vairagya are somewhat favorable for entering bhakti, they are not angas of bhakti. If they become prominent, they harden the heart, and one cannot appreciate bhakti, which is by nature very tender. They are by nature obstacles in the development of relation with Krishna. Devotion is the only cause of bhakti. Rather than practice vairagya, the devotee should practice yukta vairagya. Relating everything in the world as much as possible to Krishna in a favorable way, without being attached, is called yukta vairagya. Brs Parva Vibhaga 2.125 Yukta vairagya is necessary in sadhana bhakti, whereas cultivation of knowledge and false renunciation are not angas of bhakti but contradictory elements. The display of devotion to gain money or disciples is also far removed from true devotion and is also contradictory to true bhakti. Qualities such as proper discrimination are certainly necessary in practice of bhakti, but they are not angas of bhakti. Yamani yama, ahimsa, cleanliness. The aspects of good character become splendorous when they take shelter of an anga of bhakti. They are not independent angas of bhakti. The path of speculative knowledge and renunciation is not very essential for devotional service. Indeed, good qualities such as non-violence and mind and sense control automatically accompany a devotee of Lord Krishna. CC Madhya 22, 145 Raganuga Bhakti. Up until now, Vaiya Bhakti has been discussed. Now we will discuss Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Raga or attachment means intense and natural absorption in the object of love. When devotion to Krishna has this quality, it is called Ragadmika Bhakti. Brs Parva Vibhaga 104 The practice of following this mood of Ragadmika Bhakti is called Raganuga Bhakti. Just as bhakti which follows the rules of scripture is called Vaiya Bhakti, so that bhakti which follows after Ragadmika Bhakti is called Raganuga Bhakti. Neither of these is the goal or perfection, both are sadhana or practice. Ragadmika Bhakti has two types, Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga. The Ragadmika Bhakti of the inhabitants of Raya and Mathura is well known. Those who are eager to attain the mood of those devotees are qualified for Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Just as the qualification for Vaiya Bhakti is faith and scripture, so the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is agreed to attain the mood of the Ragadmika devotees. Scripture and logic are not the symptoms of greed for the Lord. When the mind eagerly awaits absorption in the mood of love on hearing sweetness of the particular moods, it is called pure greed. The method of practice is this, to relish topics of Krishna's pastimes while remembering Krishna and one's chosen Vraya devotee, to live in Vraya constantly, and to serve Krishna in one's body or chosen spiritual body, through service similar to that of the inhabitants of Vraya with a greed for the mood of one's chosen ideal. Brs Parva Vibhaga 118, 150-151 Among the angas of bhakti mentioned in Vaiya Bhakti such as Kirtana, those which are favorable for his service are accepted by the practitioner of Raganuga. Those aspiring for Dasya Rasa copy the mood and gestures of Patraka and other servants. Those desirous of Sakya Rasa copy the mood and gestures of Sabala and other friends. Those desirous of parental Rasa copy the mood and gestures of Yasoda and other elders. And those desirous of Madhura Rasa copy the mood, service and gestures of the Vryagopas. There are two types of Ragadmika Bhakti, by Kama and Sambandha. Similarly, there are two types of Raganuga Bhakti, Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga. Of the two, Kamanuga is stronger and more prominent. In Kamanuga there are also two divisions, Sambhajakamai and Tadbhavikamai. In the first, the devotee of Krishna is inclined to give pleasure to Krishna, in the latter the devotee relishes the sweet relation between Radha and Krishna. That bhakti in which one identifies with devotees of Krishna who have conventional relationships with Krishna is called Sambandhanuga. In Dwaraka the queen's love is Madhura Rasa based on Sambandha. In Vraya, only Kamanuga Madhura Rasa exists. Lord Chaitanya taught that the tendencies of the Yuva suddenly manifest through the Raganuga process. Lord Chaitanya has approved of worship in the Raga mode, Ragamarga. If a soul by good fortune gets association with devotees who have the mercy of Gauranga, he will certainly become greedy for the mood of the Vraya Vasas. But as long as he does not have such association, he must practice Vaiya Bhakti. Just on taking shelter of the lotus feet of Gauranga he enters the path of Raga. Those eager for the path of spontaneous attraction first practice Raganuga Bhakti. In practicing Raganuga Bhakti the person quickly develops an extremely high qualification. On attaining greed for the mood of the Vairagya, no other attraction remains. When that greed arises, the practitioner immediately becomes completely disinterested in sinful action, piety, social duty, neglect of duty, forbidden actions, speculation, and dry renunciation. In the beginning, there must be faith. Then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees. Thereafter one is initiated by the spiritual master and executes the regulative principles under his orders. Thus one is freed from all unwanted habits and becomes firmly fixed in devotional service. Thereafter, one develops taste and attachment. This is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles. Gradually emotions intensify, and finally there is an awakening of love. This is the gradual development of love of Godhead for the devotee interested in Krishna consciousness. Brs Parva Vaibhagya, Prema Bhakti Lahiri, 11. In the Vaidya Bhakti process following this gradually method, attainment of bhava takes a long time. However, if greed for the mood of the Vairagya develops, the material desires are quickly destroyed, since no other desires have a place. Along with greed for Krishna simultaneously arises bhava. On the path of raga, however, it is necessary to avoid imitation or deception. If that occurs, it produces disturbance and obstacles, though the person may think that his corrupted raga is real raga. Finally, material association turns that raga into material attraction and causes fall down of the jiva. The devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after having developed real greed, practices Raganuga Bhakti. Following the same rules as Vaidya Bhakti, the devotee takes shelter of genuine guru, serves the deity, takes Vaisnava association, studies the devotional literature, lives in a place of the Lord's pastimes, and chants the Lord's name. Along with this, the devotee serves Krishna in an intense mood of love in his spiritual body, Siddhatiha, following the sentiments of the Vairagya. Chanting the fortunate devotee, by taking shelter of the holy name, the supreme process, will become absorbed in service on the level of bhava. In chanting the name, Diksha and Puraskari rites are not necessary. By avoiding nama abhasa and nama aparata, gradually the person will be able to chant the name continuously. By continuing to chant in this way, the devotee, trying to attain the merciful glance of the deity, will continuously realize the Lord's name and form. Gradually, he will be able to realize simultaneously the name, form and qualities of the deity. Finally, he will realize the name, form and qualities while meditating on the factual pastimes of the Lord. By participation in the pastimes, rasa arises. Rasa is the last attainment. The stage of rasa can be quickly attained if the devotee maintains an intense longing for rasa while chanting the name. The offenses against the name are 10 as mentioned in the Padma Purana: to show envy or criticize the pure devotee, to think that the devatas are equal to Krishna, to disrespect or disobey the Guru, to disrespect the scriptures, to think that the glorification of the name is empty praise, to imagine meanings of the name, to commit sin on the strength of the name, to consider the name on the same level as pious actions, to give the name to unqualified people, not to have faith in the name or taste for the name after hearing its glories, and to accept the name without giving up material attachment. There are two types of name abhasa, Haya name abhasa and Pratibimba name abhasa. Chanting the name without offense but devoid of proper knowledge is called Haya name abhasa. When, through devotional association, a devotee obtains proper knowledge, it becomes the pure name, Sudanama. When the chanting of the name is covered by material desires, by jnana and karma, or by dry renunciation, it is called Pratibimba name abhasa. At times Pratibimba name abhasa comes close to Haya nama abhasa and at times it turns to aparata. For nama aparata, there is no other remedy than to continually chant in the association of devotees. Vaisnavas according to chanting those Vaisnavas who are surrendered to the pure name are called Vaisnavas following the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya. Those who chant the name in this way periodically are called Vaisnavas. Those who chant in this way continuously are called better Vaisnavas. Those whose proximity causes others to chant purely are called the best of Vaisnavas. One who is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is understood to be a Vaisnava, therefore you should offer all respects to him. A person who is always chanting the holy name of the Lord is to be considered a first-class Vaisnava, and your duty is to serve his lotus feet. A first-class Vaisnava is he whose very presence makes others chant the holy name of Krishna. In this way Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed about different types of Vaisnavas: the Vaisnava, Vaisnavatara, and Vaisnavatama. He thus successively explained all the symptoms of a Vaisnava to the inhabitants of Kulinagrama. CC Madhya 16.72, 74-75. One should take association with all these Vaisnavas. One should respect the ordinary Vaisnava. One should take shelter at the feet of the better and best Vaisnavas. Serving such Vaisnavas, the householder Vaisnava should celebrate and feel satisfied. Whether the Vaisnava is a householder or renounced, according to his level, the devotee should respect him. The devotee will seek out and serve the Vaisnavas superior to himself. One should taste the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees, and one should associate with the devotees who are more advanced than oneself and endowed with a similar type of affection for the Lord. Brs Parva Vibhaga 2.401 should not find fault in the previous sins of the Vaisnava nor the sins which have disappeared or are about to disappear, nor should he find fault in the accidental commission of sin. One should not see the devotee from the material point of view. Upadsamrta 6. The householder should perform only activities leading to the spiritual goal, and not involve himself in the sinful activities of the materialist. He should show appropriate compassion for all jivas. Considering himself fallen, he should give proper respect to all others, not demanding respect from others. The householder, being unattached to family life, should blend it with things related to Krishna. Accepting only what is necessary, he should practice relishing the chanting of the name. When the taste for Krishna becomes strong and the taste of material enjoyment becomes completely destroyed, a natural sense of detachment will arise due to absence of material attachment. Such a state will not appear by endeavor alone. Guru for practice of both types of bhakti, the bona fide guru is necessary. The guru engages the candidate of Vaidya bhakti according to his inclinations. He teaches what rules to observe and how to eliminate the obstacles. The guru shows the candidate of Raganuga bhakti how to cultivate suitable rasa corresponding to the disciple's natural taste. There are two types of taste of greed, temporary and natural. Sometimes devotees hear about the qualities of Nanda or Subala, derive great bliss and sometimes show similar sentiments, but this bliss and the show of sentiments are short-lived. This is called temporary greed. There is no use in such a show. It is necessary for the guru to carefully examine which rasa dasya, sakhya, Vatsalya or Madhura gives natural greed. Detecting one's natural sentiment, the guru will give teachings according to that mood. If this is not done, then the instructed mood will not be permanent, due to the unsuitability to the disciple. It should be noted that not all seekers will be qualified for Madhura rasa. If a guru finds it impossible for him to decide the rasa of the disciple, he will honestly admit his inability to the disciple and direct him to approach a suitable guru. The disciple has no alternative but to take shelter of the lotus feet of the bona fide guru. For fear of enlarging the book, have made a summary study of sadhana bhakti. Those who have desired to know more about this can study the Parva Vibhaga of Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu and the Bhakti Sundarbha. One translation of Bhaktivinoda, Chapter 11 Prayana, the ultimate goal taking a particle of mercy from the munificent Mahaprabhu, will now present the final goal of the scriptures and of all human endeavors, the one, final attainment. Prima, which even after compiling, studying and considering all the Vedas for hundreds of kalpas, Lord Brahma could not understand, and which even Lord Shiva, equipped with all knowledge and yoga powers, the master of the path of renunciation, is always searching for, and which all liberated jivas continually adore as the attainment of their own glory, Svamahima. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in teaching Sri Rapagasvami about Prema, said the following: according to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. When a person receives the seed of devotional service, he should take care of it by becoming a gardener and sowing the seed in his heart. If he waters the seed gradually by the process of Shravana and Kirtana, the seed will begin to sprout. As one waters the Bhakti Lata Bia, the seed sprouts, and the creeper gradually increases until it penetrates the walls of this universe and goes beyond the Viraja river between the spiritual world and the material world. It attains Brahmaloka, the Brahma effulgence. Penetrating through that stratum, it reaches the spiritual sky and the spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavana. Being situated in one's heart and being watered by Shravana Kirtana, the Bhakti creeper continues to grow. In this way it attains the shelter of the desired tree of the lotus feet of Krishna, who is eternally situated in the planet known as Goloka Vrindavana in the topmost region of the spiritual sky. The creeper greatly expands in the Goloka Vrindavana planet, and there it produces the fruit of love for Krishna. Although remaining in the material world, the gardener regularly sprinkles the creeper with the water of hearing and chanting. If the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a Vaisnava while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way the leaves of the creeper are dried up. The gardener must defend the creeper by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offenses may not enter. Sometimes unwanted creepers, such as the creepers of desires for material enjoyment and liberation from the material world, grow along with the creeper of devotional service. The varieties of such unwanted creepers are unlimited. Some unnecessary creepers growing with bhakti creeper are the creepers of behavior unacceptable for those trying to attain perfection, diplomatic behavior, animal killing, mundane profiteering, mundane adoration and mundane importance. All these are unwanted creepers. If one does not distinguish between the bhakti lata creeper and the other creepers, the sprinkling of water is misused because the other creepers are nourished while the bhakti lata creeper is curtailed. As soon as an intelligent devotee sees an unwanted creeper growing beside the original creeper, he must cut it down instantly. Then the real creeper of bhakti lata bhya grows nicely, returns home, back to Godhead, and seeks shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. When the fruit of devotional service becomes ripe and falls down, the gardener tastes the fruit, and thus takes advantage of the creeper and reaches the desire tree of the lotus feet of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. There the devotee serves the lotus feet of the Lord, which are compared to a wish-fulfilling tree. With great bliss he tastes the juice of the fruit of love and becomes eternally happy. To taste the fruit of devotional service at Goloka Vrindavana is the highest perfection of life, and in the presence of such perfection, the four material perfections religion, economic development, sense gratification and liberation are very insignificant achievements. C.C. Madhya 19-151-164 Krishna Das Kaviraja has described Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings in fitting verses with great expertise. If the Yuva can understand the direct meaning of these verses, he will be immediately fortunate. If he understands these 18 verses he will easily attain what cannot be attained by studying piles of scriptures. Since time immemorial the jivas are all wandering in the universe, following the path of karma or jnana. When the shukritas which build up the propensity for bhakti become strong, the yuva develops faith in bhakti. With faith, the devotee takes shelter of the lotus feet of sadhu and guru. According to instructions of the guru, he firmly sows in his heart this faith, which is in the form of a seed of the bhakti creeper. The yuva becomes the gardener, and waters the bhakti with water in the form of hearing and chanting the name. The creeper grows bigger and bigger, pierces the universe, crosses over the viraja, the border of the spiritual world, and after traversing the impersonal Brahmadhamma enters the place of the Lord's pastimes. When the yuva pierces the universe an incident takes place, in the form of obtaining the mercy of Krishna. The yuva in his spiritual form is very insignificant. Moreover, while giving up matter, qualities get extinguished. The yuva then desires to annihilate his existence. At this crucial time, Krishna's own mercy assists the yuva, through the special mercy of Krishna's devotees. What is this mercy? It is the Ladini Sakti emanating from the Siddhi Sakti or spiritual energy of the Lord. It is extremely powerful. At the time of material cessation, this energy is eager to protect the yuva from annihilation of his spiritual individuality. It transforms sadhana bhakti into a more loving form. By the strength of this more intense form, the yuva attains rati, and gradually begins to ascend. Without the mercy of the Ladini Sakti, the yuva cannot be qualified for the goal of prema. Equipped with the strength of the Ladini Sakti, the yuva pierces Brahmadhamma and attains the spiritual world. At the top of the spiritual world is Goloka Vrindavana. There, the creeper of bhakti spreads itself at the feet of Krishna's lotus feet and yields the fruits of prema. The gardener, still residing in the material world, continues watering the root of the creeper through hearing and chanting Krishna's name constantly. When the creeper sprouts and grows, the gardener must be careful. Sometimes the mad elephant of offenses against devotees in the form of violence, hatred or criticism arises. It tears up the bhakti creeper, and the leaves wither. Sometimes the mad elephant uproots the plant completely. The gardener must be very careful to ensure that this offense does not take place. One other obstacle may appear, along with the creeper of bhakti. Weeds may also spring up. They grow along with the watering process of hearing and chanting and smother the creeper of bhakti. Many types of weeds may grow up: material enjoyment, desire of liberation, desire for mystic powers, desire of women, sinful action, absorption of the mind in forbidden things, violence to other living entities, cruelty, cheating, longing for position, greed for money or material piety. The gardener must be careful to cut down these weeds as they begin to grow. In this way, the creeper can surpass the material world and attain the spiritual world of Vrindavana. The fruit of prema ripens and falls, and the gardener relishes it in great bliss. Prema is the ultimate goal of the yuva. Compared to this, dharma, artha, kama and moksha are nothing. Now the nature of prema and the types of prema will be discussed. When devotional service is situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, it is like a ray of the sunlight of love of Krishna, prema. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and it is called bhava. Brs Parva Vibhaga 3.1 When that bhava softens the heart completely, becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified, it is called prema by learned scholar. Brs Prema Lahiri 1. From the Svarupasakti of Krishna, which manifests all things, arises the Samvit Sakti, governing the consciousness in the spiritual world. This feature of the Svarupasakti is called Suddha-sattva, pure goodness. The sattva of Maya Sakti is not pure but mixed. Tender and deep emotion with possessiveness of Krishna is the special feature of the Hladini Sakti. When these two elements, Suddha-sattva, Samvit, and Hladini, mix, they attain the highest and most astonishing state in the user's heart. It is called pure prema. In the material world the combination of the Maya Samvit and Hladini potency gives rise to material prema or material love. This is but a perverted shadow of the pure, spiritual prema. The relationship, bhava, coming from one spiritual form and pure, natural consciousness, Suddha-sattva Svartipa, and tender actions to express that love, Hladini, are both present in prema. Bhava here refers to sthai bhava, fixed emotion. Its first appearance is called rati. By regularly rendering devotional service, one gradually becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When that attachment is intensified, it becomes love of Godhead. The basic aspects of prema, when gradually increasing to different states, are affection, sneha, abhorrence, mana, love, pranaya, attachment, raga, further attachment, anuraga, ecstasy, bhava, and great ecstasy, mahabhava. CC Madhya 19.177-178 Bhava. This bhava is called the seedling of prema or preeti, and when it appears, it shows the following characteristics. The symptoms, anubhavas, of the sprout of bhava are forbearance, not wasting time, detachment, absence of pride, possibility of attaining Krishna, greed for attaining Krishna, taste of chanting the name, attachment to discussions of Krishna's qualities, living in a place of Krishna's pastimes. Brs Parva Vibhaga Rati Bhakti. 11 These are also mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhulila 23. 20-31. When these symptoms of bhava appear, they are seen as real nature of the person. This rati is the first stage of prema. Prema is the deeper stage of rati. Prema is like the sun and rati or bhava is its ray. When rati arises, very small ecstatic symptoms appear. When rati appears in the mind of the conditioned soul, though it is actually self-manifesting, coming from the soul itself, it appears as a product of the mind. There are two types of rati, that caused by the mercy of Krishna or as devotee, and that caused by absorption in sadhana bhakti. That rati due to sadhana is commonly seen in the world, whereas that due to mercy is very rare. The rati due to sadhana has two types, from Vayi sadhana and Raganuga sadhana. Rati is a rare thing. The apparent symptoms of rati visible in persons desiring liberation or material benefits is but a semblance of real rati. This ratyabhasa has two types, pratibimba ratyabhasa, reflection, and haya ratyabhasa, shadow. Seeing those symptoms, the ignorant person will mistake them for real rati. Sometimes one may see a person who has not done sadhana, but who has genuine rati. In such cases, one must understand that in previous lives his expert sadhana was for some reason interrupted. When that obstacle has been destroyed, the result, pure bhava, appears in this life. If one seems to see some discrepancy in the actions or behavior of a person who has attained real rati, one should not be envious of him. He has reached the success of life. Actually such a person is faultless. If one sees in him some mundane action which is contrary to the rules of Vaidya bhakti conduct, from his side there is no fault. It is only apparent fault seen from the eyes of the person on a lower level attached to the rules. The active portions of rati, sestarapa bhakti, are the anubhavas, actions generated from emotion for Krishna, and the special ingredients of emotion, bhavarapa, are the sankari bhavas, transitory emotions. When these mix with rati and rati becomes intense, it is called prema, and prema leads to rasa. The topics of rasa are discussed in the work Krishna Rasmrta Samudratvavikara, so they will not be mentioned here. Prema has two types, kevala, pure, prema, and mahima jnana yukta, endowed with reverence, prema. From Raganuga sadhana bhakti usually kevala prema arises. Through Vaidya bhakti, mahima jnana yukta prema arises. The devotee attains the same planet, same opulences, same form and close association of the Lord in Vaikuntha. According to Lord Chaitanya's teachings, the highest goal is Kevala Prema. Prema arises in two ways, from bhava and from the mercy of the Lord. Prema arising from bhava has two types, arising from Veda-induced bhava and from Raganuga-induced bhava. Prema arising from mercy alone is very rare, whereas prema arising from bhava is normal. The succession to prema through bhava is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If by good fortune, a living entity develops faith in Krishna, he begins to associate with devotees. When one is encouraged in devotional service by the association of devotees, one becomes free from all unwanted contamination by following the regulative principles and chanting and hearing. When one is freed from all unwanted contamination, he advances with firm faith. When firm faith in devotional service awakens, a taste for hearing and chanting also awakens. After taste is awakened, a deep attachment arises, and from that attachment the seed of love for Krishna grows in the heart. When that ecstatic emotional stage intensifies, it is called love of Godhead. Such love is life's ultimate goal and the reservoir of all pleasure. If one actually has the seed of transcendental emotion in his heart, the symptoms will be visible in his activities. That is the verdict of all revealed scriptures. CC Madhya 23.9-17. On this there is a karika. Just as iron shows its innate quality when the magnet comes close, so the minute consciousness, Yuva, shows his natural tendency when he becomes favorable towards the Supreme Conscious Entity Krishna. His natural tendency is pure love of Krishna. This quality of raga is perfect in the spiritual world. The material world is only a reflection of the spiritual world. The Yuva, accepting unnatural qualities in the material world, produces a different type of raga towards the objects of the world, though raga itself is generated from his nature. If the conditioned Yuva does not destroy his subtle material body, his pure love will not appear. Only after breaking the subtle body, the bhakti which appears is pure preeti. Before this stage, bhakti attempting self-surrender by destroying the material identity and establishing the spiritual identity, has preeti, love, as its quality, pritamai, but cannot have preeti as its essence, preeti atmika. This state of pritamai is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The original inhabitants of Vrindavana are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragadmika Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavana, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. If one follows in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavana out of such transcendental covetousness, he does not care for the injunctions or reasoning of Sastra. That is the way of spontaneous love. There are two processes by which one may execute this Raganuga Bhakti: external and internal. The self-realized, advanced devotee externally remains like a neophyte and executes all the sastric injunctions, especially hearing and chanting. However, within his mind, in his original purified self-realized position, he serves Krishna and Vrindavana in his particular way. He serves Krishna 24 hours, all day and night. Actually, the inhabitants of Vrindavana are very dear to Krishna. If one wants to engage in spontaneous loving service, he must follow the inhabitants of Vrindavana and constantly engage in devotional service within his mind. CC Madhya 22.149, 153, 156-157. 159. The Karika says, what is the difference between love, preeti, of material objects and love of Krishna? When the affection is directed from matter to Krishna in a pure way, it becomes love of Krishna. When the same affection is turned from Krishna towards matter, it is called material love or material attachment. In the stages from Rati to Mahabhava, this affection is intrinsic characteristic for each stage. This Sthai Bhava, qualified by relations such as Dasya, attains the nature of rasa by mixing of the ingredients, Anubhava, Satvika Bhava etc. In the Siksautaka Bhasya, based on the Preeti Sundarbha of Srila Yuva Goswami, the development of Preeti is described as follows: undeveloped Preeti, in the first stage is ulasamai, jubilant. It is called Rati. This type of Rati is present in Santa Rasa. When it appears, any other object than Krishna becomes very insignificant. When ulasamai Rati becomes extremely possessive, it is called Prema. This is present in Dasya Rasa. When this develops, all causes for breaking the relationship become feeble. When Prema becomes Visvasamai, confidential, it is called Pranaya. It is suitable for Sakya Rasa. When Pranaya manifests, there is no longer any reverence, even where reverence would be suitable. When Pranaya becomes variegated and becomes slightly devious due to taking the identity of a beloved of Krishna, it is called Mana, pride. When Mana appears, even Krishna manifests fear, out of love. When the heart becomes melted, Prema becomes Sneha. With the appearance of Sneha, there are symptoms such as shedding of excessive tears. Even though seeing the Lord, The person is unsatisfied, and though capable of pleasing the Lord, the person is fearful and unsteady. When sneha becomes full of desire, it is called raga. When raga appears, even a moment's separation becomes intolerable. Meeting is happiness and separation is distress. When raga realizes the dear object in newer and newer ways and itself appears in newer ways, it is called anuraga. With the appearance of anuraga, the person desires to take birth as an inanimate object just to be related to the Lord, due to the variegated prema resulting from mutual submissiveness. During the pain of separation, Krishna makes a sudden appearance. When anuraga attains a state of madness with unequaled amazing appearance, it is called mahabhava. When mahabhava appears, during meeting, the passing of even one moment is intolerable, and a kalpa of time passes in a second. In separation, 1 second seems to be kalpa. In anuraga and mahabhava, the ecstatic symptoms such as sattvika bhavas appear in the most intense form. The Karika says, Preeti, the very embodiment of spiritual pastimes, playing in unlimited waves, continually distributes rasa to Krishna, the embodiment of eternity, knowledge and bliss. Due to the very nature of Preeti, rasa becomes extremely blissful and astounding in Krishna, who is called Krishna because he has a special attracting power for everyone. With his dark, beautiful form of compacted knowledge and bliss, Krishna is the supreme sweetness and the generator of Preeti, love. Krishna, the beloved of the gopis, is full of unlimited auspicious qualities and profuse pastimes. Krishna, the dearmost object of the soul, must be experienced directly through his name, form, qualities and pastimes. That person who enjoys with Krishna in his Vrindavana form in the forest is the most fortunate, most intelligent, according to the Kena Upanishad. The 5 angas are serving the deity, tasting the meaning of Bhagavatam with relishing devotees, associating with the superior devotees on Ragamarga, chanting the name and living in Mathura. Practicing these 5 with an offenseless heart, one attains real mercy. Through that mercy arises a greed to serve the inhabitants of Vraya who are impelled by raga. From that greed, there arises Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, which transcends the scriptural injunctions and exclusively serves Krishna with a mood of affection of the Vraya Vasis. By practicing this bhakti, sadhana, very soon, pure, exclusive preeti, kevala prema, for Krishna will arise. This is the esoteric teaching of Mahaprabhu.